Hello, welcome to episode 540 of the Unauthorized History of the Pacific War podcast. My name is Seth Paradin, historian and deputy director of the Mississippi Armed Forces Museum, and with me, as always, is my co-host, good buddy, author, and historian, wearing the same shirt as am I, John Parshall. How are you this fine Friday before
Christmas.
Weihnachten?
Yeah, very nice. I'm good. I've got the refill of the Chex Mix. I got the refill of the old fashioned and episode number two this evening. Let's rock on. Sean, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Hey, oldest friend in the world, and not the best looking, but he's close. Sean Bergstrom, retired Army major. How you
Yep.
doing, my brother? You doing
All
good?
right, man. I'm ready to rock it. It's
Bring the
Christmas
heat. Let's go.
time.
All
It's
right.
ready it's time to launch an offensive in the Ardennes. Let's go. All
All right.
right.
Yeah, that was a few days ago, right?
All right. All right.
Today's what, the 19th? Today's the
We're going to
19th?
try to stay on track this time, right?
We're going to try to stay on track. We're going to try to answer more questions.
Make
Okay.
no
Sorry.
promises.
If they
Yep.
don't answer enough questions for you guys, again, blame Sean. Send the emails. Say Sean sucks. I'll take the heat. Again, it helps if keep the length small. Don't ask me 17 questions. Don't ask it recommendations.
Yep.
Don't do already asked questions because Seth gets in my ass if he's already been like, I've already answered that. So I'm asking the
It's all good.
to help me help you.
You. All right.
All right, gentlemen, I just finished
Roll.
episode 520, the archival footage of the Marshall Islands. During Butch O'Hare's Medal of Honor
Oh, yeah.
actions, he shoots an engine of Lieutenant Ito's plane, who tries to
Yes.
hit Lex with his damaged aircraft. Was
Yeah.
this decision made on the spot, you think, or was this already a doctrine for damaged pilots? I didn't know if that was part of the Bushido Code or something they discussed among pilots. Thank you for all your efforts in educating us and inspiring the nerderati. Anthony and California.
We
I
love
love the nerd.
Nerderati.
We need shirts that say the nerderati. We
You
do.
do. God bless
Or
the
Sure.
Nerderati.
God bless the nerderati. Is that a code or a doctrine? No, not yet. It will
Right.
become such. No, I think that was your boy just saying, I got to do something,
Yeah.
and this is better than nothing, and this is what I'm going to try and do. And of course, we know he does not accomplish that mission.
Comes damn close.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's shit. He's 30, 40 yards off Lex's port bow when he goes kerplunk
That's damn
ish.
close. Yeah.
Too close.
Yeah.
All
Yep.
right. Hey
Yep.
guys, Stephen from Sarasota, Florida here. Love the show. You are all living legends. My
I wouldn't go
question
that
is
far, but
the initial Japanese offensive across the Pacific, why did they not attempt to seize
Jonathan.
Midway like
Mm,
Wake Island? And how would have that changed the trajectory of the war in 1942?
that's a great question. Um, and I wish I had Senshi Sosho here, because I might actually have a real answer as opposed to the answer I'm just going to pull out of my hat. Um, I think it's strictly a matter of sea lift, and also they understand that it's one thing to grab Wake Island, but Wake Island is not within the air envelope of any of our other existing air bases, whereas Midway absolutely is. And this is one of the primary objections that Naval GHQ has to Yamamoto's floating this notion of, yeah, we're going to capture Midway. They point out to him that, you know, Midway is outside of our air envelope in on Wake, but you can absolutely bomb Midway from Oahu. So you're going to grab this outpost that is sitting inside the enemy's air envelope, and it just isn't tenable. So I think that's what's going on there.
Do you think it has anything to do with the ability to put is it not big enough to put troops on or
Oh, it's big enough to put troops on. It's big enough. No, I think it's all just feasibility of, can we
yeah,
grab it, and once we grab it, can we actually keep it? And the answer is no. Yeah.
okay. I've always wondered which Japanese higher ups, military or civilian, were the first to realize that the war was lost. I've read that in Germany, people like Rundstedt, Todt, Keitel were among the first to know that we could not win this war. Surely there were some intelligent people in Japan who knew this, but who are they? Sincerely, thanks each of you. You are doing a wonderful and important job, and I've become dedicated fan. Keep up the
Thank
great
you.
work. from Brown from Windsor, Ontario, Canada.
Thank
So
you.
yes, thank you. And there were guys. Damn it, I can't. And this is what happens when you don't prep because you don't know the answers or you don't know the questions rather,
When you don't
or
prep,
the
but you
answers,
do drink.
Do prep.
Um,
We do prep.
or that. There, before Pearl Harbor was attacked, what was the name of the naval minister, John? Japanese naval minister.
oh, geez.
Oh my God. He was asked if the IJN could prosecute a war versus the United States Navy for a long period of time, to which he replied, I don't believe we can.
That's
And I'm
probably
paraphrasing.
Nagano.
Well, yeah, it was was it
Okay.
Nagano? Regardless, that was the answer to the question in 1941. Is if we go to Tojo asked, hey, if we go to war with the United States, what are your prospects of winning said war? Asking the IJN, and the IJN said, I don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
So this is in 1941. When was the war lost? After the Marianas fell.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. I think that anybody worth their salt at that point understands that now that
Anybody with a sane mind.
yeah, that now we're within the bombing range of B-29s, and they understood the rough capabilities of that aircraft. And I can't remember the name of again the name of the gentleman who said that okay, now there's going to be hell to pay that
Yeah.
they've captured the Marianas. I can't remember who said that, but yes, I there might have been people even as early as the evacuation of Guadalcanal that would have said, "Yeah, it's not looking good." But I think Marianas is really sort of the bellwether.
That's the
It's
nail in
like
the coffin.
that's the nail in the coffin. We're screwed.
After the Marianas, is there anyone in Tokyo, anybody talking about like, hey, let's bring this shit to a close?
Several people. Again,
Yeah,
names
but
are
nobody in
escaping
power.
me at the present time.
Well, Yonai was
Yanai, yeah.
is brought in as a peacekeeper or a peacemaker, I should say. And Togo, the foreign minister, is clearly of a mind that we need to be negotiating an end to this war with the Allies right now. But in terms of real power on the ground, obviously the Army's got it in spades at that point, and people like Anami and Umezu are just not going to have anything to do with that. So there were people within the Japanese government that understood the jig is up.
All right, Seth, John, I appreciate the work you do on the Pacific Front. I've learned an amazing amount of knowledge about the Pacific War. The question: you have often criticized the tendency of the Japanese plans to be overly complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Pearl Harbor appears to be fairly complicated endeavor with results that were successful. Please pontificate on whether
Hate
this
that word.
success at Pearl Harbor may have contributed to the Japanese philosophy that a secret to success lay in a tendency towards intricate planning. Please discuss whether the success at Pearl Harbor, surprise attack, led to a false belief that slavish devotions to detailed planning would in fact overcome the American strategy of planning with adaptation. Thanks, Steve McD.
Before I let John loose,
No, go for it. A great question, by the way. Go,
yeah,
Seth.
I'm going to say, I think, in my personal American historian opinion, that Pearl Harbor was pretty cut and dry.
Pretty
We're going
simple,
to
actually.
launch, we're going to attack, we're going to recover, we're going to go home. And that's it. There were no other twice, two times. But there are no like, yeah, I mean the midget submarines and blah blah blah, but there were no advanced force,
Mm-hmm.
vanguard force, none of this crap. It's like we're coming in, we're going to hit you, we're going to go goodbye. And frankly, I think had they stuck with that, they probably would have been more successful. But that's just my opinion. John Marshall, please go.
No, I think that's right, actually. And that's one of the things that I comment about it at Midway, that if ever there was a situation where they would have benefited from by just bringing a sledgehammer
Simple.
and
Yeah, just
beating our
simple.
skulls in with it, that was the place to do it. I I, I look at battle planning at places like, yeah, Coral Sea, that's not Yamamoto's battle, right? That's
Right.
basically Inoue Shigeyoshi is the operational genius behind that puppy. Yamamoto is the guy who's in charge of Eastern Sols and, in Santa Cruz from a force configuration standpoint. There you've got Vanguard forces and that kind of thing. So I look at that as kind of an outgrowth of their Navy. Their Navy had a predilection for this sort of operational planning. It's not even necessarily Yamamoto that does. Would they have done better to be simpler? Probably, I guess. Go, Seth.
Maybe, maybe, because if you look at certain events, i.e., Santa Cruz, we
Hmm.
talked about Santa Cruz last week, which was 30 minutes ago. You talk about Santa Cruz, and they have several different dispositions of their fleet. The
Yeah.
Vanguard Force, and I'm making these, I mean, it is Vanguard Force, Advanced Force, whatever the hell it is. I don't know.
Well, their carrier forces are separated too.
That's my point, is
Yeah.
that had they all been linked together, had we found them all at the same time, worse things could have occurred, which they did not. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah. It's hard to
works
say.
in some places and it doesn't work in others. So
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, again, I think you're dealing with it when it comes to the Japanese plans and you're looking at the American response to said plans. You're dealing with a different animal because you're dealing with an evolving animal in the
Hmm.
terms of the United States Navy. And each battle is different because each battle is different. I mean, if you look at Midway versus Santa Cruz, it's two completely different operations for obvious reasons, but just the difference in the way the Japanese and the American forces responded to one another. So, I mean, they're different entities altogether. But then again, you look at, Phil C, and the Japanese have most of their carriers,
They're in three different. They're
but
in.
they're
Yeah,
relatively close, though.
right. They're within. They can at least coordinate their activities
Correct. And I
via
mean,
radio.
the same could be said for the United States because we've got four different
Yeah.
task groups. Our
Hmm.
carriers are spread out in four,
Yeah.
but they're relatively close. So I mean, it's an evolving animal throughout the entire war. So
Yeah.
I think the best plan was the simplest plan. Going back to the original question, the original answer that we both gave was at Pearl Harbor. It's like here we come. We're going to hit you. We're going to hit you twice, and we're going to go home. And there's none of this. Look over here. Look over here. Look over here.
I think our questioner has a legitimate point, though, that if you then look at the disposition of the individual air units within that plan, though, it's extremely complex. I mean, that we've got, a group of torpedo planes that are going against the anchorage. We got level bombers. We got dive
I think
bombers
that's
going.
just brilliance, though.
Yeah,
I do. I think that's absolute brilliance. You're going to take out the threat immediately right now. Boom.
right.
With your torpedo planes.
Yeah,
Nobody's getting out of that harbor.
yeah.
No,
I'll
no big boys are getting out of that harbor.
put my
All right.
cavalry officer hat on for a second. I feel that with enough resources, it doesn't matter if it's complicated or not complicated, it's going to win. Normandy's pretty complicated,
Hmm.
but we
I
still
disagree with
because
that.
we
I don't
have
think Normandy's
resources.
complicated at all. I don't. We
Normandy's
we
pretty
land
complicated.
airborne forces at night, and then we land seaborne forces in the morning. That's all there is to it. I mean, and we're going to hit you. We're going our airborne forces are going to disrupt your communications, and which they don't. They just cause mass confusion. And by the way, the American airborne operations were to seize two bridges, which they did, and then we're going to land umpteen infantry on your beach, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's exactly what Normandy
In
is,
the
in my
army,
opinion.
they say kiss, keep it
Keep it
simple.
simple,
Keep it
stupid.
simple, stupid. Yeah,
Yep.
which is what Normandy was.
Hi there.
And
Thanks for your amazing work. Here
Maybe
are
we should do the ETO. No, we shouldn't.
no, God,
No,
no.
no.
what I tell you about disrupting the Q&A guy.
Sorry, pardon me.
Let's try not to make that happen again. This is from my boy Dan. Is it from Dan B? No, it's actually from Germany, from Martin. He apologizes his English isn't that great, but he has two great questions. Hi there, thanks for your amazing work. Here are my two short questions, possibly for John. I still haven't understood how the Japanese tried to win the war in 1942. What was their plan to knock out the U.S. in the Pacific War?
great question. And it
All
really,
you, baby.
yeah, it kind of comes down to prey.
One sentence question. That's really good question.
It's a really great question. And this is one of the fundamental inconsistencies that Eri Hota points out in her book, that the hoped for outcome was going to be some sort of a negotiated settlement where, our morale would have been so deflated by defeats at places like Pearl Harbor that we will basically decide to throw in the towel and, just let the Japanese keep their ill-gotten gains, and, we'll come to the negotiating table and negotiate an end to this war. I think there was an understanding from the outset by the Japanese that there could never be a military end to this war per se, because they never had the ability to, invade the West Coast and occupy us or do any of that stuff. So it's got to be a negotiated settlement. Unfortunately, on December 8th, when FDR gives his address to Congress, he is basically kicking that table over. He's saying that, we are going to win through to absolute victory. There's not going to be a
So
negotiated
help us
settlement.
God.
Yeah, so help us God. So anyway, that's the answer to that question.
Okay.
Kicking our morale and basically we'll come to the table. That was the gambit they were playing, and oops, didn't work. Question number 2.
In an earlier episode, you'd often criticize Japanese museums on how they display the war. How do I identify a good museum of work, regardless of the topic?
Fascinating. Great question.
I can comment on that, but you go on the
You,
Japanese
no,
part.
go
Go.
for it,
No,
Seth.
no, no. Go on the Japanese part. Go. Because I haven't been to Japan.
For my money, the the most fascinating part of the Japanese tour that I lead for the World War II Museum is watching the change in the interpretational slant depending on the museum that we're at. The Yushikan Museum in Tokyo is a hard right revisionist slant that basically says that we, the Japanese, were the peacemakers and we were trying to avoid a war with the Allies.
Shit. Sorry. Excuse
Yeah,
me. Did I say that?
right, you
Sorry.
did.
You did.
And then you go to the south and you end up in Okinawa at their peace museum down in Okinawa. And basically, the Okinawans are like, yeah, the orders from Imperial GHQ that impressed our men and boys and girls into the Imperial military were illegal and immoral, and the army should have been protecting us. And in fact, they were oppressing us. The Okinawa Museum is a better spin, but how do you know that from the outside? And that's where I'm going to throw it over the wall to my buddy Seth.
All right. So, having written 90% of the copy that is in the National World War II Museum and Mississippi Armed Forces Museum, I can tell you this. Well, let me say this. Let me preface this by saying this is that certain aspects of that museum, I was hand tied. I was basically told what to say. But the vast majority of that museum, specifically campaigns, the campaigns pavilion, RTB, Road to Berlin, or Road to Tokyo, that was me. Um, with the help of people like Don Miller and Rich Frank, who I wrote it, and then they were like, maybe you could say it like this, which was
Mm-hmm.
brilliant, which is why I'm still good friends with both of those people today. Um, you can tell a museum is good by if it possesses a centrist view of the operations and or things that they're trying to talk about. They don't take a particular side, which at the National World War II Museum, I have to say, they don't. We don't. It doesn't, because it presents things from an American point of view, no doubt, because it's presented to an American audience. But we never shied away from calling out American screw ups
Right.
and different things that we should have done or should not have done, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So I feel I'm very proud in that, it's specifically through Road to Berlin, Road to Tokyo, Arsenal of Democracy to a point. There are certain things in there. Most of the things that are in there are very accurate because we wrote it in such a way as to say, yeah, we did this, but we could have done this better, or whatever the case may be. And that is very, very important because if you have a museum, once you have a museum, you can present any type of history you want. And generally, when people go to a museum, they expect to find whatever's in that museum to be the gospel truth. And if you write it in such a way, people are going to believe that to the hilt. So you have to be cognizant of what you write, and you have to be cognizant of what you're trying to present, and you have to be forthright enough to say, yeah, we screwed up here. We should have done this. We shouldn't have done this, whatever the case may be. And I felt like that is presented well in most of the National World War II Museum, specifically Berlin and Tokyo, and most of Arsenal of Democracy, and specifically in the Mississippi Armed Forces Museum, because I read everything. So, but that is that. John, go.
When you get into language that moves into passive third person voices, I would say that's an indication to you that somebody's trying to slough something past you here.
Yes.
Again, one of my biggest problems with some of the stuff that I see in Japanese museums is that it's presented in terms of the war situation turned out to be this, rather than so
We
and
did this
so.
because.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And let me just say, writing for a museum, trying to write about the Battle of Leyte Gulf on a text panel that is, 150 words.
Yeah, good luck. Right.
That is an art form, my friend. That
Yeah.
is an art form. That is not something that is acquired, and you're not born with that. You got to work towards that
Hmm.
shit, and that is hard to do.
Good
I
job,
feel
Butch.
like that's a pretty vague answer for our German listener, but
No, I think you hit it on the
Come to
head.
the museums in the United States
Third
and holler at
person.
me, and I'll bring you through them. So,
Yeah, I mean, Martin, I think that's a great question. If you go to the World War II Museum, there's a quote by Seth that says, "The D-Day planning is easy." Seth Paradon.
I didn't
well,
say that. I said
and
the
and
D-Day operation was easy.
to the point, some of the museums that I've seen in Germany, like the museum that is on the site of where the old Gestapo headquarters is in Berlin. And that museum pulls no punches about, who is culpable, points fingers. You want that in a museum, that they will
Exactly.
come out and they will offend people and they will point fingers and say, this dude,
That's what a
that dude, or
museum
whatever.
is for, in my
That's right.
opinion, is to
Yeah,
educate.
that's right. Anyway,
Great job.
next.
That was really well done, guys. Seriously. John L. from Benton, Arkansas. He's up at 4 a.m. 0400 to watch you. And
Why?
wow.
Wow.
I mean,
Thank you.
that's fanatical.
Hardcore.
That is hardcore. I'm up at 05 every morning. That's just
Hmm.
because I have a German Shepherd that has to poop.
Yeah.
All right. John asks, what face would the war have taken if the Japanese went from Manchuria into the Soviet Union instead of attacking Pearl Harbor?
Um,
I'm gonna let you go, John, because
sorry, man. Here.
no, go.
I yeah. Well, the problem is for the Japanese that doesn't solve their problem, which there ain't no oil in Manchuria. It
Correct.
creates a lot of problems for Uncle Joe Stalin in that that's the last thing in the world that he needs right now is 700,000 Japanese soldiers, coming into Siberia.
Soviet Far East.
So, does that collapse the Soviet Union? I don't know.
I
It
don't think so.
it potentially could have, I think.
You
Those
think?
white divisions, those Soviet white divisions don't end up in Moscow in 41.
Yeah, except that that's kind of a legendary thing too, in that the majority of those Soviet divisions actually are sent to the fighting around Leningrad and have been expended much earlier in the conflict. If you look at the actual number of Siberian divisions in the Battle of Moscow, it's two. Okay,
That's it?
that's it. So there's a little myth busting for you, and this all pertains to my 42 book. I will say, Seth, that the war is on a knife's edge for the USSR in 42, and their domestic economy
There's no
absolutely,
question that. No
yeah,
questioning that.
and that it's not necessarily even a military defeat that would lead to the downfall of that regime. It's if the people give up hope and stop believing in ultimate victory, if they stop going to the factories, that's game over for the USSR. And so
I
anyway,
agree with that. I agree with that. I do. But if you just look at the map and you look at the distance from where they would have attacked
sure,
theoretically, the
13 time
Japanese,
zones, I get it.
to, yeah, I mean, the distance is astronomical. Can
Yeah,
the
but that's
Japanese keep those people in supply to actually make a push to gain actionable territory in which you're going to force the Soviets to surrender or at least
I
play the game with the
I don't
Germans?
think it's
I don't think you
territory
can.
grab. I think it's
yeah, that's
holding
right. It's a
divisions.
it's a morale play.
It's
It's
divisions.
yeah.
It's holding
I,
Soviet divisions.
to a point, but I mean, it's a morale play, yeah, yeah, for sure. But I mean, look at the amount of people that the Soviets lose in 41 and 40, hell, even in the 43.
They're
There's,
actually
I
they
don't
they
think,
can't
I
they
don't
can't
think,
they can't keep that up forever. And that's one of the
I'm not
again that's
saying they
what
can, but I'm just saying, but you look at the loss of human beings from 41, 42, 43.
yeah.
I think an attack from the east, yeah, it's going to suck. I don't think it's going to force the Soviet Union to surrender. I don't. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah,
I don't.
and I'm not saying it
And to
would.
your point, to your original point, there's no oil over there.
Yeah, and
So the
that
whole
really
point
is
for
the
Japan going to war is to get
yeah,
the resources that we have cut off from them. So it's
exactly.
not
Yeah, that's the
a waste of
material point.
time.
They're never going to do that because there is no oil there. So,
Yeah, but even then, I just don't. Anyway, go.
next question. Great
Dude,
question.
I love that question. I think
It's a great
I
question.
think it's a great. It's
It's a
one
great
of
question.
those counterfactual questions that I just love, and I know Seth
Well,
does too.
Seth loves to.
He
I
loves
love
them.
them to
He loves
death.
those.
Absolutely, they make my heart just to palpate all day
Mm,
long.
yes.
Said no one ever. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Seth and or John. I just watched episode 521,
Or
and you
both.
reference books by Craig Simmons and Rich Frank.
Simons.
Yeah.
Simons. Said that wrong. I
That's
apologize.
All
fine.
good.
No, you're good. Go.
A
Hmm.
book you mentioned by Craig Simons documented to the thoughts of Admiral Nimitz while he traveled to Hawaii to lead our
Yes.
efforts to defeat Japan. I've read several of his books and find him very informative and entertaining as a writer. Can you
He's a
tell me the
great
name
guy.
of that book?
Nimitz of
Nimitz of
War.
War. Oh, look at that. Jinx. Ha
Same time. I've watched your program on YouTube from the start and with Seth and Cap Toady and now John. I look forward to new episodes every Tuesday. Thanks, Chip J. There is the name of the book. That was
Nimitz of
the
War.
easiest question of the night.
Indeed.
What
Next.
happened after December 7th, 1941 to the Japanese embassy and its personnel and to the American embassy in Japan? Was diplomatic immunity respected? Mac T wants to know.
No, but there was a
Joseph Grew was basically kept in that embassy and locked in there.
yes. What ends up happening is that there is an exchange of diplomatic personnel that is
Correct.
accomplished, I want to say through like a Swedish passenger liner or something like that,
I
that
don't know
we
about all that.
I, I remember reading
I believe you. I'm saying I don't know.
this is years since I've read this. That we took the Japanese ambassadorial staff, put them on a ship, sailed that ship down to like South Africa, met another ship that the Japanese had sent over with our ambassadorial staffs, and then we did the swaparoo, and that's yeah,
No shit.
yeah, that's legit.
What
So
happened to
Joseph
what about
Joseph
our
Grew. So during the Doolittle raid, Joseph Grew was in the American embassy, and then they had barbed wire around the walls of the embassy. So he was essentially a prisoner in there, and he was allowed to go out only under escorted guard in a car with blacked out windows. So like he couldn't see anything. He didn't know where he was going. I mean, nothing.
Right.
So the situation in Japan, as was the case just with everything else, including our prisoners of war, was significantly more restricted than it
Yeah.
was in the United States. So
okay.
not that Joseph Grew was ever poorly treated, because he wasn't, like, at all. I think he was denied more food than the others, but regardless of this, he wasn't starving to death or anything like
Yeah.
that. But the situation for the American ambassadors in Japan was significantly more restrictive than the Japanese in the United States.
All right. So because Dennis Yu from Arizona kind of asked what happens to the ambassadors and the embassy staff. when they're in the territory. So basically, you're answering that by saying they're usually trying to get them out of Dodge. Usually,
They repatriate them.
Most of the time. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. I read that the Japanese, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, had a contingency plan for aircraft that could not make it back to the carriers to land at a tiny Hawaiian island. The
Niihau.
story goes that a shot up Zero landed there, and the locals, apparently after a fight as to what they should do, torched the plane and the pilot papers, but not before another man with American sympathies killed the pilot. If this is not an urban myth, might it not inform the mindset of the U.S. government concerning the internment of Japanese citizens?
Oh,
Is that a true
man,
story?
alive.
Yeah,
So
good
there's
question.
so much to that. So that is an actual thing, but there's a little bit more to it than what you just said. So
Hey, hold on. Hold on. I'm sorry, Seth. I'm cutting you off. The island was essentially just a big pineapple plantation owned by a family named the Robinson, I recall. The idea was that a Japanese sub would eventually pick up the air crew. This is
correct.
Dane B from Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma, who's playing Alabama tonight in the playoffs. Go ahead.
Whatever. Nobody cares about that. But that being said, Niihau is what he's referring to. There was a Japanese fighter pilot who landed there. He did crash land his aircraft. He did make contact with a Japanese American who landed on or who was on said island, who was sympathetic to his cause because he theoretically convinced him via pistol point, but that's neither here nor there. Um, Long story short, this Japanese pilot and his consorts sort of took over this village there, and he was confronted by a very large Hawaiian,
Very large.
very large. I mean, it was like 6'4", like 240, just, I mean,
Huge
very
dude.
large man who was shot, I think, 2 or 3 times by said
4 times.
Japanese aviator
4 times
and then killed him with a rock.
with a stone.
I mean, just a
And
bad
his
human being.
and his quote was, "Yes, once he shot me the 4th time or
He
something,
made
I
me
got
mad or
angry."
something. Yeah. Jesus. God. True
Right.
story. 100% true.
100%.
Kills the guy. The aircraft that landed there, crash landed there, by the way, is on exhibit or parts of it at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum on Ford Island, still to
Yep.
this day.
Yep.
That most certainly did inform opinions in regards to Japanese internment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
John,
Yeah.
go.
No, you're good, man. Yeah.
Was it, man? That was awesome. I'd
That's
read that.
great.
That aircraft is freaking cool too, because there's like I got pictures of it. Hell, I
Yeah,
may
it's
even be able
cool.
to lay one into this episode.
It's a
It's
great
like a
museum.
little
Yeah.
turd of what's left of the Zero, but it's
Yeah.
there.
It's
Great.
cool.
Was it a Zero? It was a Zero, right? If I'm
Yep.
mistaken. Yeah, I
Yep.
thought so.
All right.
Yep.
This is from New Zealand. Tom
And
from
they set it on. So, wait. The next question is
set
going
it
to
on
be,
fire.
why didn't we take the Zero and figure out, because they set it on fire.
We'll
Yeah.
deal with it.
It
All
wasn't
right.
in good shape.
Tom from Tarragona, New Zealand, home of the late Les Munro of the Dam Busters Squadron. Good day, gentlemen. My question to you is this. What do you think would have happened had Naval GHQ decided that Yamamoto could not go ahead with the Operation MI plan and Carrier Divisions 1 and 2 were not lost at Midway? What would the implications be if he resigned, and how would the war have played out had Japan had its mobile striking force more or less intact for a campaign like Guadalcanal?
Great question. I think that the Lady Ferns would have won the rugby championship this year.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say that right off the bat.
And the Saints are going to win the Super Bowl.
Who dat?
Go Lady Ferns. I don't think they have the. I love women's rugby. I'm just going
I'm
to say
sorry,
that.
I'd never heard of this before.
What do you
I thought you were
mean?
making that up until just now.
No. No.
God bless them.
They're the best women's rugby team in the world. Don't let the Australians hear me say that. Anyway, if Kitabutai is not destroyed at Midway, yeah, there is no Guadalcanal.
It's a game changer. Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
complete game changer. Because I think that Ernest King is a smart enough guy that he recognizes that there can't be a counteroffensive until we have parity of carrier forces in the theater. Yeah. So no Midway equals no Guadalcanal equals a longer war. I think a minimum of 6 months longer, maybe a year or more longer, because we just can't get the beautiful thing that Guadalcanal gives us is the ability, I've said this in other lectures, to set up the sausage grinder, right? We got to get the
Guadalcanal is the sausage grinder.
bingo, baby. It is
Midway allows us to set up the sausage grinder. I
exactly.
think that's
And
what you were trying to say.
that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And that without the sausage grinder, we can't grind the
100%.
imperial military into kibble, and we can't get this war over with. And that's the beautiful part about Midway, is that it allows us to set that sausage grinder up a year earlier than we probably would have otherwise.
Absolutely. Chef's kiss, because that is 100% true. Midway is not the turning point of the
Bingo.
Pacific War. It is the Guadalcanal campaign.
Exactly.
Campaign. And without Midway, anybody's gonna think without Midway you wouldn't have Guadalcanal. 100% true.
Yep.
100% true. But the Japanese are still on the offensive. Well,
Yep.
let me rephrase this. They no, they are. They're on
Yeah.
the offensive
100%.
post Midway. They are.
Yeah. They got a carrier.
Savo Island, they send how many troop reinforcements, which are counteroffensives, but they're acting offensively. Santa
Yep.
Cruz, Japanese offensive. November, Japanese offensive.
New Guinea,
It's
likewise.
oh yeah, God, Christ, yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, if you're just looking at Midway and Guadalcanal, yeah, without Midway, there is no Guadalcanal.
Which means that, yeah, if Naval GHQ basically overrules Yamamoto, it's a whole different ball game. Great
Yeah, and if
question.
you've got six carriers down at Guadalcanal, yeah, it's a whole
We
different
ain't
ball
winning.
game.
Yeah. We're not even going to
No, no,
fight them.
I'm not saying we're not winning, but it's going to be a
We're
We
not.
wouldn't
significantly longer
we
fight.
wouldn't have even started that campaign.
Well, that's my
That's
point, is that we
yeah,
wouldn't have started it in July
yeah,
when King is like, "Hey, let's do this
right.
because this sounds like
Sean,
a good
you had a
idea."
thing. You wanted to say a thing.
Is it safe to say that the war would be at least 1 year later, at
I think so.
46? That's we can agree that we're probably finishing this in.
I think it's potentially longer than that. There was a saying, "Home, Golden Gate by 48."
Yeah. But with
Yeah.
that, we can at least say definitively this
It's
thing
longer.
is 46. It's longer.
Yeah.
It's longer. Yeah.
All right. This is from Chuck W., Oregon Military Museum. So buckle up. Hello, everyone.
I think I met
Thank you
Chuck.
for your hard work over the last 5 seasons. You have certainly raised the benchmark with information concerning the Asian Pacific War.
Thank you.
With Admiral Richard Kelly Turner as Director of War Plans
Richmond.
in the Office of Chief of Naval Operations, what actions and non-actions that Turner did before the Pearl Harbor attack affected the decision-making process in Washington, D.C.?
Go, Seth.
Ooh, no, I see he's salivating. I'm going to let you go.
No, 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 no.
Okay, all
No,
right. So,
actually, I just wanted to ask Chuck if he's got a running Sherman tank that another museum could borrow. Chuck, if you've got a Sherman, let me know. Anyway, go ahead, Seth.
all right. So, RKT, Richmond Kelly Turner, who,
Yep.
let me just say this.
I'm going to eat my Chex Mix and just sit back.
You go ahead and you do your thing. So, I'm just going to say this. And insofar as Richmond Kelly Turner is concerned, you've said this before, he was replaceable. And I would not necessarily disagree with that. However, in the beginning of the Central Pacific campaign, he was relatively invaluable. However, prior to that, he was incredibly useless. Incredibly useless. And that includes Guadalcanal, and that includes Pearl Harbor and the months before. So, insofar as what he had to do and his culpability in Pearl Harbor, he was given information that he should have disseminated to, theoretically, should have disseminated to Husband Kimmel and the people within the Hawaiian detachment, that he neglected to do so. We talked about this, John. Oh my God, I can't remember the dude's name who wanted to send the extra message.
Right. I can't remember his name either, but
Oh, damn it. What was his name?
all of our
I'm
Pearl Harbor conspiracy theorists are going to be like, you don't know that.
Yeah, well, I'm
Anyway,
sorry.
yeah.
It's sausage in, sausage out. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Go back to our Pearl episodes. There was a gentleman in DC who saw the messages coming, the war warnings coming back and forth, and he was like, maybe we ought to send Kimmel and say, hey,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
in this.
right,
And Kelly Turner was like, nah, they're going to understand that. They're going to know they're not in this,
right.
blah, blah, blah.
No,
And at the end of the day, um, Kelly Turner was totally culpable as he was at Savo Island, and he slipped the noose because he had friends. It was a
yep,
good old boy network, which I alluded to in the last episode when we did a Q&A last week, 2 hours ago, is that there was a good old boy network in which Kelly Turner was friends with Chester Nimitz and Raymond Spruance. Not saying that Nimitz necessarily shielded him because Nimitz wasn't in charge at that point,
yep.
but he shielded him later because Kelly Turner had proven his worth and blah, 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 blah. But Kelly Turner should have been hung out to dry, frankly, by September 1942, if not before. And there would have been, to your point, John, other people that it could have taken his place, i.e., close in Connolly.
Is it
I can't
Stark?
remember his first name. Albert,
Stark?
No,
Stark
no, the
did?
guy that we're talking about. Oh God,
Albert Connolly. But regardless, there were
anyway.
people that could have taken his place.
Yes,
Turner was a tool.
Great job, guys. I appreciate all the work that you've put in every episode. Mike from LA Cali asks, Admiral O. Richardson's did not want to move the Pacific Fleet to Pearl Harbor in 40 because of lack of defense. Had he been listened to, would Japan have attacked San Diego or San Francisco?
don't have the logistics to get there. They just can't do it. I mean, it was an amazing feat that they were able to keep that fleet basically at sea for a month just to get all the way out to Hawaii and back. The Americans didn't even think they could do that because of all the underway replenishment that was required. So there's no way in hell that they are going all the way to San Diego. It's just not feasible.
Logistical impossibility. Dear John, Seth, and Sean, did implementing the bombard and blockade strategy forestall the use of the atomic bombs as an implementing of that strategy, or was there a separate question about using the bombs even after the firebombing campaign began? To that end, as the modern debate over the atomic bombs fallaciously decoupled atomic weapons from the broader American war termination strategy, this passionate destruction of Japan. As a kid, I used to watch episodes of Battle 360 during breakfast before going to school. So it's fitting that John is now a part of yet another of my favorite shows. I might have outgrown eating only marshmallows and Lucky Charms cereal, but the great work y'all do in every week has redoubled my fascination with history. Sincerely, Ryan M.
Thank you, Ryan. That's
I
really go ahead
no,
because
I was going to say I might be stupid, but I kind of missed the point of the question. I didn't get
I
it.
I do think that how does the bomb fit into the broader spectrum of war termination options that the Americans are considering? And that it's not necessarily its own
I
separate
got you.
animal, that it fits in within the context of the firebombing campaign, within
I got you.
Operation Starvation, within the blockade, the submarine and naval blockade as a whole. Yeah, but that's really a fascinating question because you'd have to go back through the documentation around how the Joint Chiefs were approaching this, how cats like LeMay, LeMay is thinking primarily about I'm going to win the war through bombing. Although, okay, yeah, they're also the Navy has persuaded me that I'm going to use at least one of my bomb groups to do Operation Starvation too. And in retrospect, I'm going to acknowledge that yeah, that was actually fairly fruitful, but we have a situation here where,
Fairly fruitful.
yeah, really fruitful
Very fruitful.
in a horrifying sort of way. Um, but I think our questioner is right in sort of implying that we have different branches within the American military that are fighting to end this war their own way, and that it really is only the dudes that are at the very top that would have any sort of a holistic view of this whole thing and are considering all of the pieces. Yeah, we're using the Navy here to blockade them. We're using we're firebombing. We're also mining their harbors using AAF bombers. How does the bomb fit into all of that? I feel like the bomb is kind of a wild card, that we have a sense of its potential as a war-winning weapon in its own right. Certainly, when we conduct the Trinity test, we have a sense of just how powerful this thing is. But even up until the point where we actually use it, we don't really understand its full destructive potentiality, I guess I would say. And yeah, that's all I got.
I
I'm
mean,
pulling that out of my hat. So
no,
interesting question.
I think what you're saying is that there is a series of things that we do to win the war, but for some reason, because this is a technological jump, it gets hyper focused as like that's crazy.
I think that's fair.
Because
I,
even though the other things before that were much more terrible and killed much more people, that
yeah.
technological jump is hyper focused on. So
Yep.
even though at the time,
Well, I mean, you got to take into effect of what that technological jump does to society post August 9th, 1945.
Yeah.
It changes the world. I mean,
Hmm.
I would venture to say that there are two instances that changed the world more than any other thing. And one is December 7th, 1941, and the other one is August 6th, 1945. And that's the God's honest truth, because if without December 7th, there is no August 6th. And everything that happens after that is a result of August 6th, 1945, in terms of geopolitics
Right.
and the
Yeah.
things that
That we
happen
yeah we now have the ability as a species to destroy
to
ourselves.
destroy an entire country, or
Yeah.
at least a vast majority of it.
Right.
And that, yeah, I mean,
That's a game
the
changer.
hyper focus on the atom bomb is a very real thing, because if
It's
just look at any
qualitatively different.
show, but I mean, just look at any show, 1950s or shit, 1949 through 1966, 67, it's all nuclear focus. I mean,
Right.
duck and cover, all that. That was not just a farce. That was a real thing. I
Yeah.
mean, it was a farce, but I mean, let's be real. I mean, it was put there for a reason.
Yeah.
SAC, Strategic Air Command. That is a. We talked about Curtis LeMay last week. That is a thing that existed because of the atom bomb. I mean, that
Right.
was a whole. It was designed to implement said weapon. So everything that occurs after August 6th is, so important in terms of geopolitics because of that bomb. I
Yeah.
don't know. Does that make any sense?
total.
I want to go back to the original question, but uh, yeah, it. I, there were very, I guess I would say, just in closing, there were very few people within the American military and policymaking circles that had a proper sense of overview of all of the different implements that we are using to try to bring that war to a close.
I don't think any of them understood the entire totality of all of that.
I
None
think
of
that's
them.
probably right.
It's
None of them.
the best thing we could say about that.
Great question.
What is the podcast's view on Miles Browning and
Ugh.
all his baggage worth his alleged brilliance at carrier operations? Did TF-16 strike at Midway succeed because of or in spite of his plan? Thank
In
you.
spite,
Go, Seth. Do it.
Miles Browning was an asshole. Bluntly put, he was. The guy was a complete
Just, let's just say
dick.
tool. He's a tool.
He was. He was a tool, man. The guy, smarter than a whip.
No.
Smarter than a whip. But he was an absolute jackass. Of course, he is Halsey's chief of staff.
Hmm.
He, insofar as Midway is concerned, Ray Spruance inherits Halsey's staff,
Yep.
of which Miles Browning is said chief of staff.
Yep.
Miles, I think you could pin,
He behaves like a baby.
he
Um,
does, but I think you could pin the whole delay of Enterprise and Hornet, that whole kerfluffle. I think you could pin a lot of that on Miles Browning. I think you could.
yeah.
Actually, I don't think, I know that you could pin a lot of the actions that result after November 1942 in Guadalcanal. You could pin on Miles Browning. insofar as the relief of Gilbert Hoover is concerned. Miles Browning made that happen.
Okay. Didn't
He
know that.
was the one. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. He's the one because he and Hoover were classmates at the academy, and they hated one another. And Miles Browning had a position of power, and Gilbert Hoover did not.
Yeah.
And yes, Gilbert Hoover made some mistakes, but Miles Browning made sure that Halsey knew about those mistakes and made him pay. And when Halsey relieved Gilbert Hoover, Miles Browning went around and gloated about it for several weeks after the fact because he was a jackass.
You,
Um,
I, I don't know if you've heard this story. Here we are tanking. Sorry about that. But
oh,
when I
God, he
do
was
my joint
despicable.
lecture, when I do my joint lecture with Rich Frank for the Naval War College's distance learning program, he talks about Miles Browning that, you would think that having been the chief of staff at the greatest naval, victory in U.S. history, that would just, punch your ticket, right? But Miles gets back to Pearl Harbor and decides to take a celebratory role in the hay.
Mhm.
And, if he had selected the wife of an army officer, he probably would have gotten, the Silver Star out of it. If he had picked a Marine Corps officer, that'd have been okay. But instead, he picked the wife of a fellow naval officer who then caught them in the act. And unfortunately, the naval officer was a former,
Beat the
captain of the,
living crap out of him.
he was the wrestling team captain back at the academy and just absolutely shellacked him. So, yeah, Rich's point was that you have to think joint, when you're planning your adulterous affairs. Anyway, the other thing I would point out about Browning is later in the war when he takes over command of a carrier,
Yes.
he's just
Yorktown, by the way.
York. Oh, is it Yorktown?
CV-10. I think it's CV. Yeah, it is CV-10.
Yeah, CV-10.
Jocko Clark's former ship.
Right. And he just runs that ship into the ground, and the crew hates him, and he's a horrible human being. Is kind of what it comes down
He's
to. So
despicable. He's
yeah,
absolutely despicable. So he takes over CV-10 after Jocko Clark, who
yeah.
was a really good dude.
Mhm.
Jocko had a head bigger than I could fit in this room.
Hmm.
Most really successful naval admirals do. He handed that command over to Browning, and Browning, as you said,
Ran into the
100% true,
ground.
ran that ship into the ground. And Jocko Clark was the one who saw to it that Miles Browning got the hell off of that ship because
Didn't you
Browning was
tell
an
me that
absolute
you
POS.
you knew a veteran whose son dated Browning's daughter or something like that?
I probably did, but I don't remember.
Anyway, this is a whole thing. Sorry,
But
we
Browning has his fingers in so many turds that his
So he's
nails are
not brilliant.
permanently stained brown,
He's not
dude. And
brilliant.
he's
not. He's super smart, just not a great guy.
brilliant guy, just a
No,
So
complete
he's
and utter
brilliant, but an
jackass,
asshole.
yeah, a jackass.
massive asshole.
Uh,
And I'm not saying that Gilbert Hoover didn't do the wrong thing,
He did the wrong thing. He should not have left those men
but
in the water.
he shouldn't have. But you have to take in
Should not have.
consideration the situation in which it was, and this is a whole nother discussion for another
Yeah,
time. But the fact that Miles Browning was the one that pushed for it only because he was a complete and utter tool and because he hated Gilbert Hoover to the core
yeah.
and then gloated
Anyway,
about it after the fact just signifies all you need to know. Gilbert Hoover, in my opinion, should he have deployed a destroyer, i.e., Fletcher, was the only one with ash
yep,
cans to deal with that submarine? Yeah, he probably should have.
yeah. Boy,
He assumed that the B-17 took the message, which it did, and it failed to reply and send the message and blah, blah, blah. But
blah
Miles
blah
Browning
blah.
was an absolute POS.
Anyway,
POS.
all right. Next question. Sorry.
Thanks for the amazing podcast. I just love it and I learn a lot. It
Do
always
you?
seems to
Are you
me
going to learn some more now?
Just listening to us rant.
some of the bullshit. So it always seems to me that Japanese kill claims were even more exaggerated than US claims. Is this
I
true?
would agree with that.
Is that all right? First off, is that true?
Yep.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If so, did it have a strategical effect on the decisions made by the Japanese command later in the war when they're trying to estimate the strength and capabilities of the U.S. fleet and forces? Jonathan wants to know. That's a great question.
One time that I can think of, and John, please jump in if you so choose, and that would be the Air Battle of Formosa, which is a freaking fascinating topic to me. And I think it's like our second highest rated episode, I think.
That's weird.
Um, yeah, because it's something
Nobody
that
knows
nobody
about.
talks about. Nobody
Nobody
talks
knows
about
about.
that. And it's the opening to Leyte Gulf. But because of the high, super high kill claims made by the Japanese at Formosa, the opening air battles thereof, they do things that they probably wouldn't have done had they known that Task Force 50 or
Yep.
38 was indeed intact,
Yep.
as opposed to the claims that were made that said that they were not so intact. So to that degree, yes,
Oh, I
it
think I think
influences.
it's an endemic pattern, and I refer to this as sort of a delusional feedback loop that
Right.
the Japanese continually think that they are hurting us worse than they actually are. And
Correct.
that leads to them doubling down on tactics like the kamikaze, which end up wasting more lives and protracting the war beyond where it needed to be protracted. They were losing. They didn't understand that they were losing, or they willed themselves into a position of not understanding that they were losing as badly as they were losing. And so, yeah, that you get this loop that just takes you further and further down this path of lunacy to
Right.
guys like Anami who are like, yeah, we're going to fight them on the beaches and, we're going to win. It's like, no, you're not.
A
But
So,
it
massive
makes sense. But the
delusional feedback loop, though. Again, I fall back to the Air Battle of Formosa when they held like, victory parades and, the emperor
right.
gave out like rice cakes and crap like that, in
Yeah,
celebration of the victory that never happened. I mean, it
that
was
never happened.
completely fabricated.
Yeah.
Again, if you haven't watched that or listened to that episode, go back and find it because it is a revelation because there's some fascinating stuff that we talk about up in there.
But it makes sense that they're thinking like high command's got to be like, dude, we're killing the shit out of these people. We've
Yep.
sunk we've sunk the Yorktown 5 times. Oh, it is.
Right.
I AI'd that shit. It's 5 times that they.
Is it? Okay.
All
There we
right.
go.
But it makes sense that they think, all right, all we gotta do is throw some kamikazes at them, and we've bled them.
Yep.
But that was even before the kamikazes were a thing
Right.
Yeah.
at Formosa specifically.
So
No,
that's
and that actually, I'm sorry, I'm tanking here. I mean, if you go back and look at Admiral Ugaki's diary entry for December 31st, 1942, he rolls out a list of the kill claims that the
Oh my
Japanese.
God, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane. It's like a
It's more
hundred.
ships than we'd made in 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 138 major warships or something like that. It's like, dude, you're high. You
Yeah.
can go and pull your copy of Jane's Fighting Ships off the shelf and check your numbers, and that's our entire fleet. You can't.
Yeah.
It's nutty,
well, but
and yeah,
but that makes
Nin,
a
nin,
great point, John, because the public in Japan in 42 think they're winning,
yeah.
but with all
no,
these
they think they're
numbers, they're
winning in
like, they gotta be
44.
winning.
They're yeah. I think they're
But
winning in 44. Yeah,
yeah,
Right.
and
But the
Nimitz
numbers
even
say
made the
it.
claim that when he read the Japanese reports on how many ships they believed they had sunk, he said, "Christ, I wish we had that many
I
ships."
wish we had that many carriers, man.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
great question.
Seth and John, great job with the podcast and videos. My question is, I am 74. Both my parents were World War II vets after graduating from high school in May of 41. I remember my mother telling me of how they knew of an attack on Pearl Harbor, but it wasn't until after the war that she had learned of the details. Roosevelt, in his address to Congress, was vague as to the number of casualties, which was understandable. But what and when did the public actually learn of the loss of the Zona, California, West Virginia, etc.? And was there any indication to the public that no aircraft carriers were in the harbor? I guess today's need to know provokes the question in wondering if the public back then was satisfied in not needing to know any more than there was and of about the sneak attack. Thank you, Richard M. from Evansville, Indiana.
So California, West Virginia were never reported as sunk by the American public, by the American press because we resurrected them and they saw a lot of war action. Arizona was known Oklahoma was known. The sinkings of those ships was a thing. Like we knew, public knew that those had happened.
But they had
When?
actually did sink.
Do you remember when?
42.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
dog's going bananas. There we go. All right, yeah. So, and so far as Arizona is concerned, I don't remember the exact date, but it's sometime in 42 when Arizona is announced. I mean, it's announced that she's lost Oklahoma as well. I want to say Oklahoma was like 40, late 42, early 43, but you know, but as far as Weavy and Cali and Pennsylvania and Nevada, those were never released because yeah, they were sunk, but they all saw action again. So
Mhm. It's different
But
speed.
I think what he's trying to say is the details are just it's
the
very
details were very vague because for multiple reasons, not the least of which is FDR did not want to degrade American morale, and number two, did not want to inform Japanese intelligence. And I mean, that was a thing, we
Hmm.
had, they had Japanese spies in the United States that were going to report what had happened, and they did consistently. So,
I
yeah,
would say that an interesting exercise for Jonathan might be if you subscribe to the New York Times, go to their Times machine,
New
and just
York
put
Times
in a
machine.
search for Battleship Arizona and see what you end up finding. Because my guess is, that would give you an indication as to when the loss of that ship was finally announced. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but that's where I would start looking for it.
all right. We had touched on this last episode. Um, Wade wants to know whatever happened to the notorious Stanhope ring after Midway. It seems to fade away from history.
He goes on to have, God, doesn't he command a carrier too, Seth?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm looking. I'm doing real time history
Okay, do
now.
some real time, yeah,
The
on
the
that.
only thing I can tell you about Stanhope Ring is post Midway is this. My friend Clayton Fisher, who
Yeah,
was bombing Squadron 8
yep,
aboard Hornet, who was
yep,
at Midway and Santa
yep.
Cruz, and he got shot up at Santa Cruz, the whole deal. Anyway, he retired from the United States Navy, I think as a captain, obviously a naval aviator. He lived on Coronado Island.
Yep,
I went to his
for a
house
long
on
time.
for till he died.
Yeah, a
I
long
went
time.
to his house on Coronado Island to do his interview twice, three times, two
He's the
interviews.
one I'm thinking. It was Stanhope Ring that lived right across the street from him,
Exactly.
and they never
Stan
told
Ring.
you.
So Clay lived in the same house for like 40 years. Beautiful
Right,
home. If
right.
you've ever been to Coronado Island, which I know you have, John. Sean, have you ever been there?
Negative.
It's a time capsule. Coronado Island now looks like it did in like 1932.
Okay,
It's gorgeous.
yeah,
Anyway, regardless of this, Clay lived in a house that he lived in since like 1950, and that's the house he died in. And across the street, in one house to his left, lives Stanhope Ring.
right. I remember
And
you telling me.
Stanhope Ring moved in there like a year after Clay lived there, moved in, and lived there till he died. And in the 30 years that Clay lived across the street from Stanhope Ring, his former air group commander, he never said a word to him because he
He would never
detested
say.
him.
He
He
just
hated him. So I'll tell you all you need to know.
All right. That's a great answer. That's probably the
Yep.
best answer we've had tonight.
All you need to know, man.
Stanhope Ring was a martinet. Yeah, he
He
was
looked like a bird too. He wasn't
not a
an attractive
well-liked
human.
guy. Anyway, go
No.
on.
All right. Well, this is from a specialist, William L., U.S. Army. This is why I'm asking your question because it's A, he's an Army guy like me, but it's a
Heck yeah.
good question. And it's for a guy named John. John, how did you find out about the Japanese not having sufficient bombardment shells to send out to the other two Congos for the barroom brawl? Did someone reach out to you with that info? You found some
No,
random report or some other third thing? Bro, what are you doing to find this info?
great question. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Okay. Always learning. To your question about bombardment, Type 3 Sanshikidan ammunition for those ships. I actually took the Senshi Sosho volume for the Guadalcanal campaign, and I took my phone and I aimed Google Translate. I had a friend who's like, "You want to check out these pages?" He's a Korean guy, Sengun Ri. He was the translator for the Korean version of Shattered Sword, and so he reads Japanese. He's fluent, and he's a great guy. He's really savvy too. But he's like, you should check out these pages in Senshi Sosho. And so I pointed my camera in Google Translate, and that's where I found that snippet. I hope that at some point we will have good translations of all 100+ volumes of Senshi Sosho, but we don't at this point. So yeah, we're left pointing phones at it. But that's where I got it. That's legit where it came from.
John, excellent research, my man. That is amazing stuff. That's a gem you found, my man. Seth and John, I look forward to the podcast every week, and I enjoy the content. I have two questions. My first question is, if General Short and Admiral Kimmel had been on alert and ready for the attack, so they're prepping, how do you think Pearl Harbor would have looked differently?
Empty.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the back question of that is, okay, how much warning? Do we have enough time to get steam up and get out of the harbor, or are we talking, 40 minutes warning?
Let's just assume that we translate the first radar contact. Let's assume we translate the first radar contact, not Ward,
Okay,
because as we know, Kimmel had that information 10 minutes
yeah,
after it happened.
right.
Let's assume we have the first radar contact.
Around 0700, something like that, right?
There's a handful of ships that get out of the harbor.
Yep.
Handful.
I think
There's going to be some aircraft airborne. There's going to be some
for
fighters
sure.
airborne.
Yep,
Maybe.
maybe. Oh, I think so. I think there's going to be a fair number. I mean, if you put the phone call out to Wheeler Field and say there is a Japanese attack coming in here, I need you to get every fighter up in the air that you can. I think that, there's several dozen fighters probably that get off.
Okay, I'd agree
Is
with
that
that. You
fair?
get 40s and 36s,
Yep.
P-36s in the
And
air.
I think that, they're going to extract some number of the incoming attackers. I think
I
the
agree.
real change that you're going to get is that all of the ships in the anchorage are buttoned up in condition Z with ready ammunition, ready to rock and roll. All of their ACAC batteries, are manned. And basically, you're going to see the same volume of flak that you saw in the second wave is going to be in place for the first wave. And that is going to materially degrade the
The torpedo attacks.
bingo.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
I think, excuse me, you score a few torpedo hits for sure. It's going to
Yep.
happen.
Yep.
Stationary targets, you're going
Yep.
to hit them. And if you button them up, like you said, I don't think that Callie
Oh,
plunks like she does.
and Oklahoma doesn't roll over.
I don't think she rolls over. I think she sinks because she is old and decrepit. I think she's going to go down. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but we're
I don't
not
think.
going
I
to
don't
lose
think
400
Weavy.
guys.
I don't think. I still think Weavy takes. She
Mm-hmm.
what does she take? Seven or
Seven.
eight? Seven.
Seven.
Let's just
Seven.
split the difference. Let's say she takes
Takes four.
four. Let's
She
say
still sinks.
she still sinks. I mean, there's still going to be some significant damage. Um, I still think it's a debacle. I do. I still think it's a debacle. I don't think as many as American sailors die as they did by
Yeah,
guys getting caught trapped inside those sinking battleships. I don't think
yeah.
all those guys die.
But if you look
Um,
at the overall fatality count within that attack,
Most of them
it's
are in Arizona for
it's
sure. Yeah.
Arizona, right?
Yeah.
And
Man, a lot of them Oklahoma too, 400 plus guys.
400 plus, but 1,177 on
No
Arizona.
doubt. No doubt.
And just because we're going to change one variable doesn't mean we can't change two. We've made this point as well that we got lucky with those high altitude
For
bomb
sure.
attacks, that there were some bum fuses in there.
And
And that,
ricochets.
yeah, and ricochets and God knows what. I mean, Maryland and Tennessee absolutely could have been blown to bits by one of those bombs, and we lucked
So
out.
so look at it this way. I can't remember which one it is. It's either Weavy or Tennessee that takes a ricochet off of the turret, off of turret number two. Bing!
Yeah,
and it blows up. That's what kills Mervyn Binion, is that
that's
shrapnel
right.
that comes back and just
But I think
cuts
it's
him to
a hit on
pieces.
a different ship, actually.
It
Oklahoma.
is, and I can't. So
Oklahoma.
it must have been Tennessee
Tennessee.
that kisses off of that turret. So you're
Hmm.
talking feet.
Yeah,
You're talking feet.
yeah,
You're not talking 30 feet. You're talking maybe
three
10.
feet. Yeah,
Yeah, three,
it,
6, 8 feet.
we
If you're
easily
on a little more, you're
we
going down into that
easily could have.
battery kabloom.
Yeah, kaboom. We could have had two Arizonas there, not just one. That absolutely could have
Yeah.
happened. So, anyway, back to the original question. I think that the Japanese would not have scored as heavily. They would have lost more aircraft, but I think your point, Seth, is correct that it's still going to be a beatdown and we're going to lose a bunch of guys and a bunch of
We're gonna
ships.
lose it. We're gonna lose a bunch of guys. I don't think we lose as many.
Maybe.
Uh, I
If
mean,
they
I
blow
just
up Tennessee the way they blew up Arizona, we're going to lose another 1,000
just
guys.
take that out of the equation and say they don't. But I mean, let's just say that I don't think we lose as many human beings aboard those Navy ships as we do. I think we shoot down a few more planes, but I also think we lose a lot of planes too, because those P-36s ain't gonna be able to dogfight with no zero, baby.
No.
It ain't gonna happen. It's not
Yeah.
gonna happen. And a lot of those, I saw something today. A lot of those P-40 pilots were given instruction by Claire Chennault and all that jazz and blah blah blah. I know you know what
I
I'm
saw
talking
that.
about.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, instruction is one thing, practice is another.
That's
As they
what I
say,
said too.
theory is one and practice is another.
Yeah.
You can tell somebody something all you want until they put it into practice, they don't know how to do it. And those guys, frankly, I'm
Didn't know
sorry,
how to do it.
didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And the majority of the kills against Japanese aircraft over Pearl Harbor were against retreating
Yep.
Japanese dive bombers that were taken from behind by American fighter planes, i.e., um, oh Lord, I'm drawing a blank. The two
Yeah. The two guys up at
badasses,
Bellows,
yeah, Welsh and Taylor.
Walter
Welsh and
Taylor.
Taylor at Alieva. Yeah, those two guys. I mean,
Yeah.
those the
Up Bellows.
vast,
Yeah.
yeah, they're the ones that are doing that, and they're doing it from behind by surprise,
Yep.
with the
Anyway.
exception of the two oncoming when they're taking off. But that's besides the point. I think it's still a debacle. I do.
Yeah.
That's from Joey, Rock Hill, South Carolina. And your second part of that question was answered in a previous Q&A, my man. All
Okay.
right. Seth and John, I love the podcast.
Thank you.
And I'm working through back episodes. So
Me too.
currently, I'm on episode 439. You talked about the snafu of Boxcar's bombing of Nagasaki and the very poor decisions of Chuck Sweeney, the pilot and mission commander. My question is, what would his alternative have been other than dropping Fat Man using radar bombing when it was obvious the bombardier couldn't visually see the target? He was running out of fuel. He didn't want to try to land on Iwo or Okinawa with a live A bomb in his
A
bomb.
bomb.
And dropping the mofo out in the ocean just wasn't really going to help the war. So he
Mm-mm.
No.
got
No,
himself
he's
in
going to drop it
that
regardless. That's why he did it.
situation. And it would seem to me that the best course of action was to drop the bomb and see what happened. I'd love to hear you and John's thoughts and what could have been done differently besides not messing up so badly already. Peter from Sunset, North Carolina.
I don't
Thank you,
think
Peter.
anything could have been done differently. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that 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 Sweeney did the wrong thing. I'm just saying that he screwed the pooch
Yeah. The
by
earlier portions of the mission were botched. The
yeah,
the
by dropping the
decision
bomb. He did what he was supposed to
did what he's
do.
supposed to do. Right.
He
He
just
he should
foobarred
not.
the first parts.
Right. He should not have loitered waiting for the weather plane to show up and all that other
No,
stuff. I mean, he's the one who got himself into the fuel fix that he got himself
correct.
into.
100%.
But at the end of the day, when he makes it over the target and they make one pass and they can't get visual, we both believe that they radar bombed that target. We
Absolutely, they radar bombed
absolutely
that target.
believe that.
Hell
But
yes.
but no,
So did Paul Tibbets, by the way.
he had no choice at that point but to do what he ended up doing. So,
And he
and
did the right thing,
he
I
did the
think.
right thing. In a certain sense, we end up killing fewer Japanese people as a result of that. That's not necessarily a bad outcome either, because from a strategic standpoint, the bomb still does what it needs to do i.e., it convinces guys like Anami that, oh, they don't actually have just one bomb. This is in serial
They got more of
production.
these things. Yeah.
So it did what it needed to do.
Yep.
Thank
Amen.
you, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you for your support. Seth
Yep.
and John,
The
let's
best part of that mission, though, was when he landed
I
and
got chewed out.
Tibbets chews his ass, and as they're walking away, he just asks him, and I'm gonna bleep it
LeMay
out. He
says,
just says, "You effed up, didn't you,
you
Chuck?"
effed up, didn't you?
And Sweeney didn't say a word. He just turned around and walked out. That's all you need to know.
Need to know.
he should have turned around and said, I just won the war. I'm going
Yeah.
home.
Oh, fair.
Seth and John, let's say Seth loves these. Let's just say on the eve of the Battle of Midway, Nagumo suddenly had a personality shift and
And
adhered
diarrhea.
to the same doctrine of calculated risks that Fletcher and Spruance did. At what point during the morning air attack should Nagumo have realized something was going wrong and that he was on the back foot? Would that have been early enough for him to disengage and reconsolidate his forces? Thank you for what you do, Ethan.
That's a great question, Ethan.
After you.
I think it's even earlier than that. I think it is really the more I've studied this stupid battle, the more I've become convinced that the reason the Japanese end up on the back foot is because of the disparity in scouting assets that are available to the two opponents. And that Nagumo needed to have dedicated more assets to scouting than he actually did, so that there was some overlap in the search vectors and that sort of thing, so that, even though Chikuma's number one plane ends up screwing the pooch and not finding Task Force 16 at the right time, that there would have been another bird out there that might have been able to do that. That in turn would have necessitated having more search assets from the carriers themselves. The two cruisers, Tone and Chikuma, just don't have the organic birds to make that happen. You're going to have to dedicate probably Kaga's third Chutai to doing the scouting missions. And that would have given you more in the way of parity on scouting assets, which would have allowed you, hopefully, to detect the Americans earlier in that affray, and given you a sense of danger, frankly, that, oh my God, the Americans are here. That instead of getting that information at 7:40 in the morning, you get the clue at 6:15. That becomes a whole different ball game. So I really do think it comes down to the scouting. Seth, you got anything on that?
I got nothing.
Cool,
It's
man.
all you, man.
There
Good
we
job.
go.
Good job, John. Did Halsey take the battleships north to Uganda for their AA against possible IAGN carrier and land power? I think Lee should have been at San Bernardino, but Halsey thought he was going into a 1942 type carrier battle. He should have known better, Donald.
Yeah, what is the worth of the AAA on that battleship force? Because my sense is, Seth, and maybe I'm wrong, that Willis Lee's battleships are not necessarily sailing in concert with the carrier task forces per se, and so that the presence or absence of those battleships does not materially affect the AAA density over our carrier task forces. Am I right or wrong?
This is from Pete from Alabama. It's always part of my Tuesday. The first most important question I've received of all questions: where do I get some of John Parshall's wallpaper?
I think I may have
Jesus.
some. If someone made
You
a
need to
comment.
make parts of that and autograph them and mail them
That's
out.
what somebody said once, and I think I've still got a roll of the wallpaper down in our basement. We backstory. When Margaret and I moved into this house in 1993, Margaret was 6 months pregnant with our first kid. The house was in great shape, and even though we hated the wallpaper, we didn't want to do anything because we didn't have any money, and B, we
Yeah.
didn't have any time. We were just about to have a kid, and so, fast forward 30 years later, and now we're like, yeah, well, it's too late now. This study is loaded up with bass guitars and books and whatnot, and I just don't want to move. So Yeah.
That's all
Anyway,
you.
that's what I got.
He
But
wants to know what's your problem with Turner, man. Obviously, he's not your most favorite admiral.
we are. It's not just me. I mean, Seth has problems
No,
with Rich.
I
My biggest
do.
problem with Richmond Kelly Turner is that he threw Fletcher under the bus.
Well, he
That
passes the
he
buck all the time. It's not
passes
just
the buck.
Fletcher. He passes the buck all the time.
Yeah,
All the
that's
time.
it.
Well,
And to
I
take
can't stand people who don't take responsibility for their own screw ups. And he never did.
and that gets back to a sort of a cultural question. That if you read Craig Simon's book on Annapolis at War, the class of 1940, one of the things he points out is that these young men are educated to tell the truth. That's an important point of the culture of the academy, is that you have to take responsibility, you have to tell the truth. And Richmond Kelly Turner does not do that. He scurrilously destroys the career of a brother officer because he will not face up to the fact that he screwed the pooch at Sabo. And I think it's despicable. And so that's my problem with RKT.
you
There you
go.
go.
There's your answer. And
Yep,
if you want his wallpaper, email him and buy his book, and maybe he'll send you a piece of it.
that's right.
All right. First off, I'd like to say that this is probably the best World War II podcast out there. And I
We
look
know.
forward to this new episode each Tuesday. And
You're high, but thank you. Yes, anyway,
I
go.
think I speak for all fans when I say I truly appreciate all the time and effort Seth and John put into each episode. Well, amen to that, brother. Okay.
Appreciate you. We have
Here's
a
your
great time.
question. We all know how ineffective the Devastators were at Midway. How much did things improve once the Avengers took over, given the ineffectiveness of the torpedoes?
Yeah. A good question. Good question.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So you got a better plane, but your torpedo is still hot trash. That's a great
Again,
question.
the numbers in front of my face, I should know this because I just wrote about this not 2 weeks ago.
Come on, dude.
When they attack Hiei,
Mm,
when Torpedo 10, the Buzzard Brigade, great name, by
yeah.
the way, for the squadron. Good God.
Great
Buzzard
name.
Brigade. When they fly off a Big E and then they land at Henderson and they attack Hiei 3 times, 4 times,
Mhm.
they do score a lot of torpedo hits only because of the sheer amount of numbers that they throw at the thing. Um, the torpedoes just sucked. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, the Avenger was a better airplane. It could absorb more punishment. It could
Mhm. It's faster.
put more punishment out as
Yep.
well. It was a multi-purpose aircraft. It was faster. It was more robust, but the torpedoes still sucked. There were, geez, Louise, on the first attack on Hiei, they did a hammer and anvil. They did a 9 plane attack, of which 2 torpedoes hit and only one
Me
exploded.
too. Yeah. Right.
So I mean, it's like, I don't care what kind of plane you got. If the ordnance doesn't work, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, they do wind up putting like 6 or 7 fish in it, but I mean, Christ Almighty, it takes them all goddamn day
Right.
to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seriously, they
Yeah.
launched like 70 sorties against
Right.
EA. 70,
And
seven
and get seven
zero.
zero and got 6 or 7 hits.
6 or 7. They generally accepted 7 torpedo hits against EA, just
So yeah,
fish,
you're
mind
you're
you.
getting a you get a 10% functionality rate out of that weapon.
Less than
That's
that. And
yeah,
that's
that's
that.
great.
So to keep in mind that, well, actually, it's a little bit more than that because majority of the attacks were dive bombers. But
Hmm.
still, that's neither here nor there. I mean, the Avenger was a better airplane for sure, but the ordnance was crap. It wasn't until 43,
Right. That's
specifically Rabal, especially Hailstone Truck, when the aerial drop torpedoes actually started to go kaboom when they
all
hit the
right.
target,
Yeah.
more often than not.
Imagine those things with Japanese torpedoes.
And just
Yikes.
imagine if our torpedoes worked. Our
Hmm.
torpedoes had a lot of pow to them. They just had to go pow when they hit the side of a ship, which
Yeah.
they more often did not. Had
Yep.
they done so, Hiei
Yep.
wouldn't have languished all through the day. She would have
Right.
she would have been sunk by noon.
Yeah, glub, glub, glub. Anyway,
Yeah,
all right,
but she
Sean.
wasn't.
Victor, a Singaporean here.
Yeah.
His occupation is chief priest, Pacific War narratology. Christian military chaplains regular featured in Pacific War literature. Did IJN or IJ have Shinto or Buddhist chaplains?
Ooh,
Great question.
that is fascinating. I don't know.
Next question, please.
All right. Hello, Seth.
I have no clue. I honestly have no idea. Um, and I wish I did. That's a great question.
I've never heard anything that they
I've
did.
never I've never come across a mention of that.
Chaplains are a special breed of human being.
Yeah.
That's cool
I
people.
mean, we have instances, of course, famously in Tora Tora Toro, where there is a Shinto shrine on each of the
Sure.
carriers, and all of the aviators, make
Yeah, they go do their thing. Yeah.
yeah, do their thing in front of that, which points out too that these religions, in a certain sense, are more. It's more an individual practice necessarily than, oh, I'm going to Shinto church today or something like that. It's not that kind of a deal. A lot of Japanese people to this day still have, a little spot in their house or their apartment that this is my shrine, and so it's more an individual practice, I guess I would say, than an organized religion per se. So that you don't need priests as much. Anyway,
I
that's my
find it
guess.
fascinating that U.S. Navy vessels, especially big ones like carriers and battle wagons, had multiple chaplains
Yeah.
aboard, or in some cases they had one who did everything. They
Wow.
did Catholic, they did Protestant, they did Jewish, they did
Which,
they call them
yeah,
Holy Joes. They do everything, and they
Holy
guys didn't
Jones.
they didn't care. They
Yeah,
did like, hey, you know what? I don't care. I'll do it. You know what? You want to believe? You're a believer. Sit down. Let's talk. And
let's do
I
it.
think that's amazing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Ron S. wants to know, I've always wondered why we never bombed Hirohito's palace into our government headquarters. I don't believe we use such restraint in Europe.
We did
Well,
not because we bombed the Berghof. Well, not we, the Brits did, but the Berghof was bombed multiple
yeah.
times.
The Imperial Palace was struck during a bombing attack in 1945, and
But was
it's
it
clear
targeted
to,
though?
yeah, that I can't remember. I do know that the third atomic bomb absolutely was slated for Tokyo, and that, yeah, Hirohito was considered a legit target at that point, and the emperor understood that. I mean, he spends the better part of the last 10 days of the war in his bomb bunker in the palace because he's aware that he may well be a target of atomic weaponry. Yeah, that was the thing.
But we
But yeah,
never slated the palace for target.
I think so.
among other things, if
Well,
you're trying, go ahead.
no, I was going to go ahead. Good.
I was just going to say, I mean, if your goal as Curtis LeMay is to burn down a city, you want to go after high density neighborhoods that are full of combustible buildings. And that is the antithesis of what the Imperial Palace is. It is this big, it's a park, if you will. It's not terribly flammable. It's got some buildings in it, but the majority of it is just open ground. Anybody who's been to the Imperial Palace, it's immense. It's like 160 acres or some damn thing. So it's not a very good target for a firebombing effort, which is 90% of what we were doing by the end of the war. If what you're trying to do is burn down more of Tokyo, you're not going to start in the Imperial Palace. You're going to go to some other neighborhood.
I do know that during the Doolittle raid that the Imperial Palace was an absolute no-go by Jimmy Doolittle. He's
That
like,
is
don't
also
you
true.
touch it.
Yeah.
Why?
Don't you touch it.
Why?
Because that wasn't the target. The targets were military targets. We were trying to we haven't gotten to that stage of the podcast yet, but I'm what?
I think the essence of the question is if we could kill Hitler, we're going to kill him, but why aren't we like trying to kill Hirohito?
I can't give you that answer.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't
I,
know.
at the end of the war, we were legitimately thinking of killing Hirohito. Absolutely. You
All right.
bet.
All right. Bruno Gaido. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Yep. You did.
Michael wants to know that we know the story, but how did that story get out?
Which
Press.
story?
About him getting in the back of the SPD, and I'm assuming that's what he's
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Getting in the back of the Dauntless and shooting at the
As
Betty.
opposed to the story of how he was killed. You know,
Right.
we don't learn.
I think that that's the story of like he gets killed on what he's on a destroyer when they throw him off. Is that
Yes,
right?
Makigumo, I believe.
So
Yeah,
how does that get back to us?
it doesn't. We don't learn about that until after the war.
That's the question.
There you go.
Good job, John. All right, love the show, guys. Keep it up. If the 1945 style kamikaze tactics had been used by the IJN during the 1940 battles of Eastern Solomons and Santa Cruz, I think Saratoga and Enterprise would have been lost in those battles. What do you think, Chris?
So technically they were at Santa Cruz. There were 2
Yeah,
suicide aircraft that hit USS Hornet CV-8. We just talked about this about an episode that hasn't aired yet, but by the time this airs, it will have aired because we examined that footage. There are 2
valves.
There's a valve, 2 valves
Two
that
valves.
hit USS Hornet that
Yeah.
are damaged and purposely crash into that aircraft carrier. Neither of which, mind you, does any damage that sinks that ship. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. That said, I mean,
Saratoga was a firebomb.
yeah.
So it was Lex. I mean,
Yeah, I
they
mean,
were.
if you posit the Japanese are like, okay, I want you to go in, drop your torpedo, and then crash the ship. Yeah, we could have lost more carriers as a result of that. But they're not in that mode of operation yet because the
Still
kamikaze
winning the
is
war.
exactly
They're on the
kamikaze.
offensive.
War.
They're on the offensive.
That's true. Well, yeah, and the only reason the kamikaze comes around is because they're losing so bad that this, desperation. Exactly.
All right. My boy Gaz from UK wants to know, has it ever been evaluated if the U.S. carriers had been moored at Pearl Harbor during the Japanese attacks? What would have been the possible implications on U.S. morale?
That's a good question too.
I'll take a stab at that real quick.
Do it.
I don't think the morale of the United States is affected as much by the sinking of a carrier as it is by a battleship.
At that point in the war.
I don't. Not yeah, exactly. Mainly because the United States public and the Navy had been raised on the fact that the battleship was the queen of the seas, and any loss of any such said ship is catastrophic. We talked about this. Not only is it cash, but it's staff, human staffing as well. And the
Status.
US, exactly. The US public
Prestige.
was infused with this notion that battleships were the thing, and they were until 1942. They were. So the loss of the Enterprise or Lexington or both and Pearl Harbor certainly would have sucked militarily, but morale, I don't think it would have done anything more than the loss of a cruiser because of the fact that we had not attached the importance to the carrier in 1941 that we would have in 1943, 44, 45.
That said, I mean, if they catch Enterprise and another carrier in Pearl, that's an entirely different war. That's a game changer.
For sure.
Yeah,
But morale-wise, I don't think it does
morale-wise. Yep.
All right. This is from Chris in Chicago. Greetings, lads. Sean, you have stated multiple times that MacArthur doesn't even make your top 10 Army generals.
I remember that.
We know Wise Owl also shares that view. So in your top 10, Seth and John, feel free to chime in.
Top 10.
As I know you will. I know he's not in the Pacific theaters, but McCullough would be number 1 for obvious reasons. So to pontificate on that, my comparison that I was trying to make with Bill was Nimitz could be compared or he is named the number 1 admiral in all U.S. Navy history.
Fair.
You're trying to compare MacArthur, who is not even in the top 10 of U.S. Army military history. That
Understood.
was what I was trying to specify. I didn't do a good enough job on that podcast.
I thought you did fine.
However, with that being said, let's try to name a couple of Army generals that we feel are better than MacArthur in the Second World War.
Second
ETO
World
and
War.
PTO?
We
Yeah.
get each. Lucian Truscott,
George Patton.
George Patton, Eichelberger, clearly.
Bob
Right.
Eichelberger, yeah.
Do they have to? A.D. Bruce, we love the guy.
Hmm.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Roosevelt, but I don't know that
I
necessarily.
don't think so. James Gavin.
Gavin.
Jimmy Gavin is a
Jumping,
bad man.
jumping,
That is a bad man.
He's a
bad
bad
man.
man.
That is a
Lawton,
bad man. Yeah,
Lawton
Jim Gavin,
Collins,
Lawton
Lightning Joe
Collins,
Collins,
Alexander Patch.
Patch. I like Mark Clark. Kind of took Rome.
Oh God, he was a tool too,
He
man.
took
He was
Rome,
such
bro. That's a big city.
He took Rome. Me, you, John, and my dog could have taken Rome.
Okay. How about my boy Abrams?
great
Creighton
guy.
Abrams, he wasn't a general then, he was a
He was
colonel,
Wasn't
but
a
yeah,
general.
Creighton
Yeah, we
Abrams
gotta,
was the
I think we
man.
need
Yeah.
to keep it at general level officers.
Yeah,
All right.
Creighton Abrams
Actually,
was
general.
no, Creighton Abrams was amazing. Yeah, but he was a colonel at the time.
Woods, the commander of 4th Armored Division, great commander. That was Patton's favorite armored division.
Yeah.
Who's I always space his name. The commander of 11th Airborne in the PTO.
Swing, Joseph Swing.
Swing.
He's great. So we just named so to answer your question, I just gave you 10 guys that are maybe in the same realm, and I haven't even gotten to the Revolutionary Civil War.
Okay. Yeah, it got to be World War II, dudes. We got to keep it in that box.
All right. Looking forward to the
I
show.
mean, we do have to say Omar Bradley. I mean,
I said Bradley. I did.
did you?
Did
Oh, I'm
you?
sorry.
I don't like Bradley.
You guys were yelling out stuff. I was like, Bradley,
Sorry.
Bradley.
Yeah, Bradley. Yeah,
I think the only reason that
he was a good dude.
Bradley has the reputation that he has is because he lived for 1,000,000 years and he was able to craft it for himself.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he basically, the movie Patton, he basically was the guy
He wrote it.
who pulled him out of.
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, First Army was pretty tight. I mean, I'm just saying.
Anyway,
But
okay.
Jimmy Gavin and 101st Commander. Oh, good gravy. I'm spacing.
Well, he
Ridgway.
said
Matt Ridgway.
Ridgway.
Oh, Ridgway. Yeah, Ridgway. Oh, yeah, Ridgway. Ooh.
Ridgway.
Yeah,
Matt
Ridgway. Yeah,
Matt
damn.
Ridgway.
No,
There's
gotta
people
talk
at
about
home
it.
screaming Ridgway, and we have
Yeah, sorry, I'm
Yeah,
the thought bubble was empty right there.
Yeah.
Matt Ridgway.
This is what happens when you dump drunk PTO guys into a discussion of the ETO. You don't get, Ridgway. Anyway.
All right. Look forward to the show every week. My question is, how much of the 8th Air Force had been transferred to the Pacific, and what type of missions were they flying? Thanks, David from Albuquerque.
I don't know that they were flying missions yet. I think they were being transitioned to B-29s. I do not know the percentage that had been sent over there, but they, there were definitely a leading cadre was on Okinawa by the time the war
Jimmy
ends.
Doolittle was there.
There you go.
Who was COO of 8th Air Force.
Right.
All right. As a recent graduate of a master's program in military history, I hope to pick your brains as individuals who have worked in and spent plenty of time around museums. How does one best go about finding work at a military history museum? And what are some of your favorite museums around the country? Nick L. would like to know.
First of all, become a technology worker like I did for 35 years and put bread on your table other than history. No, that's a terrible thing to say. Seth, you live in this world, man. Give me the lowdown.
I do indeed. So I got very lucky in the fact that the National D-Day Museum, which of course became World War II Museum, was put in my hometown of New Orleans, Louisiana. I was very, very blessed by that event. After my long tour there, I went to work, and I'm still working for the United States Army as a historian for the Army. I mean, military museums are, frankly, they're few and far between. They really are. And most of them, if you're not working for the Army or the Navy, They're private entities like the Nimitz Museum or the World War II Museum or places like that. And I mean, just apply. I mean, I don't know what else to tell
Yeah.
you there. Nimitz Museum, I know their staff is small. World
Yep.
War II Museum staff is enormous, um, in my opinion,
And the
for their
Nimitz
detriment.
Museum
But
is kind of a weird animal though too, because they're sort of part of Texas. I mean, that's the other
right,
thing that's going on
yeah, what
there.
is it? North Texas University, the University of North
Well,
Texas.
but their collection is actually owned by the state of Texas. I think Nicole was telling me that the other
Right.
when I was down there in September. Anyway, it's kind of a weird deal. But yeah, I mean, I apply as Seth says.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, poking around. I mean, I'm just going to tell you now, you're not going to get rich. It's not a financially necessarily a financially rewarding. I've been doing it a long time, so it's a little bit different on my end. But to start, it's not a financially rewarding position. You got to really, really want to do it. And then, insofar as like ship museums like the Alabama or the North Carolina or the
Right,
Iowa or whatever the case may be, or
Missouri, and
the kid, that's there's a very small organizations. Um, I
it
don't
might be the
think,
kind of thing where you would start as a docent or something like
yes,
that.
yeah.
Volunteer your time and then
Or you might get lucky and they might have an opening for a historian. And I mean, take a stab, dude, go for it.
yeah,
But I know for a lot of those organizations, because I know a lot of people at those organizations, you got to really know your stuff. And I'm not saying that you don't. I'm not saying that to any degree. I'm just saying you got to be able to back your stuff up. And it does not hurt to know people within the field.
yeah,
It just doesn't. I mean, and I said before about a good old boy network. It's not like that here, but it doesn't hurt. It
Write a
doesn't
book.
hurt to be able to say, I know
Write a
this
book.
dude and this dude.
yeah.
Um,
I
so
will say too that in the case of the Nimitz Museum, they don't have the budget to actually have full-time historian on staff, and I know that because I'm one of the two virtual historians, me and John McManus, that they hire on a very, sort of a yearly retainer basis um, to work for them, but it's, by no means a full-time salary. It's another chunk of my income. I've got, if you look at John Parshall's personal finances, there's a chunk of book royalties that come in from Shattered Sword. There's the fact that I am doing tours for the World War II Museum. I have a retainer with the Nimitz Museum that is, some amount of money. I do maps for the World War II Museum. That's another side gig. It really is, for me,
Tours. Don't forget
it's a
tours. Did you?
I did, yeah,
you said
tours
tours,
for,
yeah.
yeah. So it's a gig economy is kind of what it comes down to. And in order to get your foot in the door, you may be doing something where, okay, I'm technically working for thus and such museum, but I'm really only doing it part time, and I've got to come up with other streams of income to keep the wolves from the door. And who knows what the heck those are. Like I say, I made my living for 35 years in the tech field. And, there's that can be a good way to go too. If you can do a full time gig, but still address your passion and write articles or do whatever it is that you're going to do on the side, that's perfectly viable as well.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is if you've got a master's degree or a PhD, obviously from institution, turn that into a book, and that's
Well,
Yeah,
probably
you don't even have to have that. You don't have to have that.
just
If
it
you have
couldn't hurt.
the
yeah, it's like
it
a
certainly
word.
can't hurt. But if you have the material knowledge and you have the intellectual ability to write a book that's worth a damn, that people are going to want to read, and there's a whole discussion there. Um, do it. Just
Yeah,
do it. If you got an idea for a book that hadn't been written yet, that's the key, or a new spin on something that has, just freaking write it, man. Just
yeah.
put pen to paper or finger to keyboard, whatever, and get it done. Just do it. And I'll just say this: do it before you have a contract. Just saying that.
This is ultra true. Yeah.
Stuart from Sydney, Australia, was wondering if Japan had an equivalent to the Medal of Honor, and if so, whether there was any particular notable recipients. Thank you
No
for
idea.
producing such a great podcast.
Thank you. I always love hearing from Australia. Um, yeah, I mean, the Japanese had a full series of various medals of which I am, there's the Order of the Crane and, and various degrees of that. I do not know the criteria whereby they were awarded. It's interesting when you go to the Yushikan Museum in Tokyo to kind of get a sense for the people that the Japanese military looked up to as being their heroes. And I'm trying to remember, what sort of awards some of those people, even the the lower ranking folks would get. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm kind of punting on this, but suffice to say that yes, the Japanese did have military honors and medals that they would hand out. I don't know if there's anything though that is analogous to the Medal of Honor per se.
Yeah.
Great question.
I got nothing. Yeah.
Tom Mason from Bethesda, Maryland. Did the
Bethesda.
Sorry, Bethesda. I said that wrong. That's what
Been there many a time.
Drinking for 4 hours gets you,
Right.
boys. Did the slower top speed of the North Carolina and South Dakota 27, maybe 28 cause problems when operating in a carrier task forces when the carriers and other escorts carriers could do 33 knots? Did the BBs just get out of the way, or did the carriers keep their speed down? And if the later, what was the point of the extra speed? And were the Iowas built in part to have that speed to keep up with carriers?
Yes. Yes, 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 and yes. The battle wagons. So I've said this 100 times. Task force can only go as fast as the speed of the slowest ship. So, I mean, the anti-aircraft firepower of the South Dakotas and the North Carolinas was such that they had to have those things around. And yes, to a point, the Iowas were built to run with those Essex class and those fast carriers. They were built to run with those girls. However, 27 knots is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not,
Yeah, and I think there's a sort of a common
And most task forces didn't move at that speed
that's
99% of the
exactly what I
time.
was that's what
It
I was
was
going to say.
generally between about 15 to 20 knots
That's
is
right.
yes
Yeah,
ish.
16 to 18 is kind of
Yeah.
that's what they're cruising
Yeah.
at. When you come under attack, then a lot of those ships are gonna
Sure.
boot that bucket along. But bear in mind too that if you're an Essex class carrier and you're under attack, you may be, putting out some fairly radical, maneuvers there, which has the effect of slowing your overall speed of advance
Correct.
such that that 28 knot South Dakota, which is not pirouetting all over the ocean, to avoid being bombed. I'm just, basically going this away. I'm going to be able to keep up with that faster carrier regardless, just because I'm not dancing
Yeah.
all over the place.
So I bring it back to Santa Cruz, which
Mm-hmm.
you and I just talked about, and
Right.
Sodak is tighter than a tick to the
Yeah.
Big E, and Enterprise cranks it up to like freaking 30 knots
30. Yeah.
to evade those Japanese dive bombers that are coming at her.
Yeah.
And South Dakota, and we saw it in the footage and in the photographs. She's back there. I mean, she's
Yeah.
not terribly far. I mean, you could clearly see her she's in the same frame,
Yeah.
but she's cooking. I mean, she's probably got it wide open to keep up
Yeah.
with the Big E. But to your point, the Big E's doing these kind of
Yeah.
things, and South Dakota's mimicking that, but not to that degree. So
Exactly.
it's like driving a race car. If anybody ever has, and I have, is that if you make a turn, it does slow you down to some
For sure.
degree. So I mean, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Question for John. Why was Kaga unable to shrug off the single bomb she took at Midway and eventually was left burning Hulk like Soryu and Kaga? Likewise, I understand that Hiryu retained at least part of her fighting capabilities, given the lack of fueled aircraft in her hangar, what hindered the crew efforts to save her as well. Many thanks, Thomas.
Akagi is just screwed because she has armed and fueled aircraft in her hangars. And so, yeah, put one bomb in the wrong place amongst these fueled and armed aircraft. And there were there were torpedoes that were sitting around in her hangar decks as well because of the, the arming switcheroo thing. Those torpedoes had not been taken back down below decks to the bomb rooms again. So she's just, a powder keg basically waiting to go off. One guy with a bic, could have flicked his bic down there and blown that ship to kingdom come, probably, just given the, just the gasoline vapor that was drifting around in that place. Yeah, it was a catastrophe waiting to happen, and that was commented on by the Japanese themselves. With respect to Hiryu, the fact that her bomb damage was kind of localized in the forward part of the hangar deck, and there were fewer aircraft up there, primarily because her air group had already been shot to pieces by that point. So from a passive damage control standpoint, there are fewer aircraft that you have to contend with there, located in that portion of the ship. And she retained her engineering plant for a longer amount of time. From what I can gather from her, just the source material that we have on her fire mains were not knocked out as quickly as some of the other carriers were. So she retained at least some damage control capability longer. But what ends up happening, of course, is those fires eventually begin working their way towards the aft portions of the ship, which not
like
only
Lexington.
Yeah, bingo. And once those fires get over the machinery spaces in the center part of the ship, you start roasting the crew and blah blah blah. So
with going on with the Battle of Midway, Nagumo had launched his attack instead of waiting to recover aircraft. How many aircrafts would he have lost due to the planes ditching in the ocean? And based on a strike attrition rate of the era, would he still have to have a functional air group after the losses of the ditching of the Midway planes, as they would have lost in the first airstrike of the U.S. Navy fleet? I know this idea is hypothetical, but it seems like it's like kind of a no-win situation. Wade is kind of asking that.
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's something that Fuchida explicitly says that's what we should have done. We should have just ditched the entire morning strike in order to get the reserve strike up on the flight decks and taken them off. I just think that's crazy from a battle management standpoint, that if you're the carrier task force commander, willingly sacrificing a half of your aircraft, when you've suddenly been confronted with this brand new opponent whose magnitude you don't necessarily know. I just think that's nutty. So, ditching 108 aircraft, they had lost, I forget how many over Midway itself, it's a dozen or something like that. But yeah, ditching 100 aircraft. I mean, that's just no. Even
not in 1942 with the Japanese Navy.
No, it's just not
You
going
can
to
do
happen.
that in 44 with the U.S. and we even hated to do that in the Mission Beyond Darkness.
Right.
Okay.
Anyway,
Good answer, John. How about this one for you? This is from Rick from Katy, Texas. Many Japanese operations have "go" in their name. What does "go" mean? If it is an operation, you can give a "duh" on the air. If you don't,
it's operation.
Is it go? No.
Yeah, that's essentially its operation, right?
Okay, so it means operation. Okay. All right. Daryl H. SWO, United States Navy, retired from Alcuin, Illinois, wants to know: reading and comparing Sunburst, Kaigon, Shattered Sword, First Team, etc., I remain confused about the IJN Task Force Air Search Doctrine. Seems sometimes they use cruiser float planes, Midway, but sometimes Kates or Vals. Could you clarify?
Use both. I mean, use
Yeah,
cruisers in Guadalcanal too, all the
yeah,
time.
Tone and Chikuma were explicitly built to be scout cruisers, if you will. And what ends up happening is the Japanese carrier doctrine is actually evolving during the time frame that you've just described. That when we go into Midway, they preferred, if possible, to do the majority of their scouting using the float planes from those cruisers. Although for their morning recon, they actually augment that with a Kate apiece from both Kaga and Akagi. Had the word gone out, had they had a different intelligence, or okay, had they had intel that had suggested that there might be American carriers in the neighborhood, they would have beefed up that scouting plan, and they would have had to have used carrier aircraft in order to augment that. And particularly since Kaga was coming into this battle with 27 Kates as opposed to the 18 Kates that the other three carriers carried, Kaga would have been the carrier that would have probably augmented that. But that it ends up continuing to change throughout the war. There's more of an emphasis on scouting. And so, fast forward to a battle like Philippine Sea, the Japanese were actually very good at aerial scouting, and they're using some of their D4Y Judies at Philippine Sea to scout, and they do a very good job there. So I guess the answer is there ain't no one answer. It really does come down to a kind of battle by battle sort of comparison because their doctrine continues to change throughout the war in reaction to defeats at places like Midway.
What would you grade the reconnaissance forces going into the Second World War?
We kind of badmouth them, particularly because of Midway. We look at Tony number 4 and we say that's the reason they screwed the pooch. I'd give them a B. That they were fairly competent at what they did. It's just that sometimes they didn't use as many assets as they should have. And again, the point that Tony Tully and Lou Yu wrote an article on this very topic for the Naval War College Review back in 2011 or so. It's all driven by the intelligence estimate that the carrier commander has in hand. That if that estimate says, be careful, there might be some enemy combatants in the neighborhood, lo and behold, they have two-phase searches and much denser search patterns than was the case at Midway, where they were handed an intel estimate that said, nah, there's not going to be any American carriers here. Okay, fine, we'll put up 7 birds and that ought to do it.
Yeah. So the reconnaissance was actually spot on. The intelligence was bad.
Ding. That's it.
All right. Matthew B says, thank you so much. Look forward to many more future podcasts. He asks about 3 questions, but guess what, Padna? You're getting one. I listen every week, and I through the week as well, and I listen to the old podcast most every night. Here's my questions. If you get to be somebody in World War II for 24 hours, live experience, who are you picking midnight to midnight?
Great question.
Honestly, nobody. Because I don't want to be in those situations unless I absolutely had to.
Yeah.
That being said, on a badass level,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick one of my personal heroes, and that's Wade McCluskey.
It's funny that you would do that because the one I would pick would be Mitsuo Fuchida because I just want to know what happened.
Wade McCluskey is just he's up here to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw his grave at Annapolis, and it was like, I was like, ha ha ha.
Yeah, not worthy.
Wow. Yeah,
right.
Seriously. Yeah, Wade
Yeah.
McCluskey.
I do not want to be Eugene Sledge under any I don't
want to be any ground combatant. None.
God bless them.
Yeah. You don't want to be on the Enola Gay and watch that thing go off?
I really don't. No, I don't. I knew Dutch Van Kirk, and I don't really want to see that. He told me about it, and that's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wade or Willis Lee.
The other one I would throw out, Willis Lee or Bruce McCandless. Although I
don't know if I want to be there.
I don't want to stand on that bridge.
No.
But anyway.
What
great
a badass
question.
He was, my God.
Lord. Yeah.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever finds you, gentlemen. Cheers as
Right.
I sip on my sin pack. Give that man a cheers.
Absolutely.
My question is about the Yamato on her last mission, Tengo. Had she made it to whatever miracle that would have been to Okinawa and beach herself with her fuel on board, and owing to the fact that in a very shallow water she could never have been producing much water to feed her boilers, how long before she would have gone from being the world's largest battleship to the world's largest paperweight? And to that point, do you believe the U.S. Navy would have taken a joyriding her around on a war bond tour? Senior
She
Chief
never would have made it.
Neil from Tebow Island, Georgia.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, so she makes it to Okinawa. She beaches herself. We are going to reduce her to the biggest pile of scrap iron. Our bombers are
She's
going to
gonna be
go.
taking land artillery, man.
Yeah, we're gonna wreck her. There's never going to be a possibility where we're going to take her out for a joyride, which is a shame because what a beautiful ship. Yeah, we would have demolished her, just demolished her.
So no chance of that becoming a museum on Okinawa.
No, yeah, I
The
arguably there would
wreckage
be.
of.
Yeah, there would be less of her left today had she done that than what you can still find of her on the bottom today. So yeah,
All
we
right.
would crushed her.
Those hypotheticals, I know Seth loves them. Like throw those in there.
Love it.
Yeah, I feel you.
I have a source, Dave Kay says, that claims General Short not only lined up the planes at Pearl Harbor as a defense against sabotage, but defueled them, removed the guns from them, and stored them in lockers in the hangars and stacked as many as possible in hangars. I'd like to know if that's true. Thanks for all you do. I've learned more about the Pacific War over the past few years than I have in 68 years.
What is your said source? I've never heard of them disarming
I
the
haven't heard of that.
aircraft. No.
Yeah, and I think that
Why would you disarm the aircraft? What's the point of that?
yeah, this
You
doesn't make
might as well
sense to
have a
me.
Cessna out there if, that doesn't make any sense. No, I don't believe that for a minute.
Yeah, I don't think I do either. And I'm just trying to think back over the some of the conversations I've had with Mike Wanger over the years, and he's never breathed a word of that. And
Mm-mm.
that guy's forgotten more about Pearl Harbor than I will ever know. So anyway,
Yep.
Dave R says you've repeated that the Japanese carrier flight operations, form up, assignments, etc., was the best for many months into the war. But considering the U.S. Navy carrier situation, damaged, sunk, split off various operations, how could they have perfected flight operations? Also, what's the story behind matching the Japanese with an even a larger fleet? If the answer is long and complex, I'll sit through the podcast on the subject. I always enjoy the show. Say hi to Bill. Many thanks, Dave R.
to the first part of that question, and Seth, I'm going to let you, if you want, to jump in, but I want me to riff or
Go for it.
we as a Navy just hadn't made the conceptual leap to multi-carrier operations at this point. That there had been an active discussion before the war um, around the optimal composition of a carrier task force, and there was always a disinclination to put too many eggs in the same basket. Is kind of what it came down to. And so, as a result of that, the U.S. Navy was never inclined towards operating more than one or maybe two carriers in a task force. Whereas the Japanese, having a more offensive orientation, Genda has this sort of epiphany that what would happen if we put four carriers or six carriers in one formation? We could do some really cool things from an offensive standpoint.
I think a lot of that has to do with the leadership in there, and you're talking about Ginda specifically,
And
and you look at the U.S. Navy. Hey, buddy. You look at
Ozawa too.
Yeah, for sure, and you look at the U.S. Navy, and I mean, let's just say 1940. I mean, you're talking we got Lex, Saratoga, Enterprise, and Yorktown on occasion in the
Yeah.
Pacific, and
It's
that's
really
it.
only those four. Yeah. Well,
That's
that's
it.
all the carriers we have. Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Is that you can't really operate several multi-carrier task forces if you only got four flat tops in the whole damn fleet.
Hmm.
So, by 1942, when we get to Guadalcanal, well, hell, when we get to Midway,
Yeah.
Because I mean, even you look at, well, hell, even after Midway, technically, because I mean, you could say because Enterprise and Hornet are in the same task force, and then you got old Yorkie over here, but I mean, Coral Sea,
It's
there's
really
two
John
different.
Lindstrom has made this point to me on more than one occasion that it's really not until Operation Hailstone, the attack against Truk,
uh,
February of 44, that
uh,
we have replicated in essence what the Japanese were able to do at the end of 41.
All right.
Yeah,
David P. from Ithaca, New York is looking to get 1942 added to his shelf very soon, John. But
it's
but what he wants to know is that once he has 42 in Shattered Sword on a desert island, what are the other five books he should have?
oh wow. It kind of depends on what it is that you want to do. Okay, so Seth, yeah, what are your favorite books?
You only get five.
Got 5 books. Downfall is on my list. With the old
Wow.
breed is on my
Yeah,
list.
with the old breed for sure. Um,
Ian Toll's three.
those are good.
They are good,
They're damn good.
but I don't want to waste 3 books on that. If
There's
I'm go
I was going to say there's a book that was written. I don't remember when, not terribly long ago, within the last 10 years. It's called Soldier from the War Returning, and it's about PTS, about guys coming home from World War II with PTS and how they dealt with it or didn't,
or
as
didn't.
is more often the case, and how it affected their families. And it is, and it's one of the top 3 books I've ever read on World War II in my entire life.
Wow, never heard of it.
It's unfreaking believe. Bring you to tears.
Yeah.
Bring you to tears. It's unbelievable. That is a book that I frankly don't want to read again. Not because it wasn't good, but because it was so goddamn good
Hmm.
and so powerful and so moving that it physically took a lot out of me to read it, but it was
Right.
unbelievably fantastic. Soldier from the War Returning. I can't remember that. Thomas. Just look it up. It's there.
Yeah.
Um, I, I can't say enough about it. It's literally one of the best books I've ever read in my life. That and Sledge. Those are my
I
top.
was going to say a lot of people ask me for what the best one volume history of the Asia Pacific War, and I always go with Ronald Spector's Eagle Against the Sun. I think it still stands up pretty well.
Yeah. Devil's Anvil about Peleliu is really
Mm,
good. James Hallis. That's a
okay.
really, 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 really good book. If you want to really get in the nuts and bolts about Peleliu,
Okay.
that one is my go-to. It was when we did our Peleliu series, among others, but that was top notch there. Bill Ross's Iwo Jima is a
Hmm.
really good one.
Race of
Uh,
Aces is pretty damn good.
Race of Aces is very good, but it's very niche. Oh,
Obviously, Rich Frank's Guadalcanal still stands up
oh
very well.
yeah, no,
Great book.
yeah, yeah. Barrett.
We've given you about 20 there.
Yeah.
All right. Andrew C asks, "Hello, O professors of knowledge. I've been wondering what could have caused so many Japanese ships to explode during or soon after sinking. Could it have been the Type 3 bombardment or the AA shells?"
Both.
That'll
Yeah,
do it.
well, and you have similar things happening in some other carriers too. I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily a Japanese thing.
It isn't.
Yeah, you look at a battleship like the Barham,
Hmm.
rolling over in the Mediterranean, and shells start falling out in the powder rooms, and bad things happen. So I don't know that I would necessarily chalk that up to any particular type of IJN ordnance. It's just what happens when warships start turning
Thinking.
upside down. Yeah, particularly with fires.
Okay. Ed from Poughkeepsie, Michigan. The Opana radar station located on the north shore of Oahu tracked the Japanese attack coming in from the north. I believe it also tracked the attacking planes returning from the north.
I
After
don't
the
think
attack,
that's true. because it
Okay.
was
I
shut
think they
down.
did.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
But
the aircraft
were
never
there
turned
any
off.
attacks or search conducted north of Oahu?
Not that I know
No.
of, right?
Yeah, the majority of the planes that took off to go look for the Japanese task force went and looked to the south of the island, which is part of the problem because that's where we thought they came from.
Frankly, it's
There
part
was
of the
no
blessing.
coordination there.
Yeah.
No coordination. All right.
Yep.
Perhaps it's my Midway bias, but torpedo attack aircraft does not seem to be successful of a tactic in war. What was the overall results of torpedo bombing for the war, Pacific and ATO? Thanks, Kevin from Massachusetts.
Oh, geez. I
So
feel like
I was going to say I can't give you a percentage or an exact stat, but after Midway, again, kind of like what we talked about a little while ago, with the introduction of the Avenger and the
better
improvement in the
torpedoes.
torpedoes themselves, the hit rate ticked up. I mean, good gracious, just look at Musashi and
Yeah.
Yamato, the amount of
Yeah.
fish we put in those things. And I mean, and again at Guadalcanal, I mean, yeah, a lot of duds on Hiei, but I mean, we put a few fish in Ryujo. We did some
Yeah.
damage out there with
Yeah.
torpedoes. So, a
I,
better airplane and a better piece of ordnance certainly helped.
I would point out too the Japanese cruiser losses at the Battle of Samar that Shikuma and they lose three heavy cruisers there, and they're all the victims of torpedo planes by and large. So similarly, heavy cruiser Nachi in Manila Bay at the end of 1944. We just eviscerate her with torpedoes. So a torpedo is still it's an effective weapon. It's a fairly dangerous mode of delivering that weapon, but yeah, if you can hit a ship with one of those things, it does a tremendous amount of damage.
Big
Ask the
kaboom.
Bismarck about it.
Yeah, it's the biz. Yeah, right.
The biz.
Dear sirs, December 1941, that the location of the four IGN carriers, quote, i.e., Carrier Div 1 and 2, could not be determined. This implies that the operational status of Carrier 5 was unknown. If so,
Hmm.
how did the U.S. determine that the attack on Oahu was delivered by 6 carriers? Was it the large number of attackers, the identification of downed aircraft, post-attack IGN radio traffic, or some other means? Randy W. from Friendswood, Texas.
Great question.
So initially, right after Pearl Harbor, Leighton estimated that the attack had been conducted by two. By
Really?
two, I swear to God,
Oh
he
my
estimated
Lord.
that the attack had been made by two, and then like a couple 3 days later, he says as many as four. I don't remember them saying six within this, month or two
Yeah.
after Pearl. It had been it was a while before they came to the conclusion of six. When that came to be, I don't know. But initially he said two, and then as many as four within the several weeks after Pearl. But when they came up with six, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I have
And
no
that's from
idea.
Leighton. That's from Leighton's book. That's directly from Edwin Leighton.
Wow. I
Yeah,
did
as
not
many
remember
as
that.
two. Yes, sir.
As many as two. Holy Moses.
I'm sorry. Yeah, as many as two, or as many, and later as
Yeah.
many as four. Yeah, 2 to 4 is what he said.
Yikes. Okay. Great question.
Martin in Brisbane asks, John, in your detailed research of your book, 1942, what was the most surprising or telling new fact or insight that you came across? Same for Seth in putting together these fantastic episodes.
Honestly, I think the biggest eye opener for me, because I am a spreadsheet nerd and I like grinding numbers, but I built two separate spreadsheets that looked at the monthly heavy bomber losses for both RAF Bomber Command and 8th Air Force because I was interested in doing comparative loss statistics between those two outfits. And one of the things that became apparent as I was kind of grinding the numbers and looking at the crew fatalities per plane, RAF Bomber Command, man, if you wanted a fancy way to commit suicide, that was your best bet. in 1942 is to be an aviator for RAF Bomber Command, because I think a lot of us, particularly as a result of a series like Masters of the Air, we look at Eighth Air Force and we're like, oh my God, this is the most dangerous duty in the world. It's nothing, man. That was a cakewalk compared to RAF Bomber Command. On a sortie per sortie basis, the British were paying, it was roughly 3 times as dangerous to fly at night in a Lancaster as it was to fly in a B-17 over a target like Bremen. Think about that. And not only that, but that same trend applies through a number of the British service arms. So submarine duty in the U.S. Navy was the highest, it was the most dangerous service arm. British submarines were 3 times more dangerous than U.S. submarines. Their merchant marine paid something on the order of 4x what our merchant marine paid during the war. So I feel like sometimes RAF Bomber Command gets overshadowed by the contributions of the Americans in that war, just because by the end of the war, 8th Air Force is just so overwhelmingly powerful. But, Bomber Command did a tremendous amount to advance the cause of Allied victory. And God, they paid a really eye-opening tax to make that happen. So that was my big one.
Seth, what's the most eye-opening thing you found during this podcast?
How many times we screwed up?
That's
Seriously.
fair.
And I'm not talking about me and John or me and Bill or me and Bill and John. I'm talking about the United States military as a whole. Everybody thinks that, after Midway, why? I don't know. I guess it's from victory at sea. Everybody thinks that after Midway, everything that we touched was gold. We had the Midas
Right.
touch, whereas it was quite often the touch was
Yeah.
brown, not gold. And you know what I'm talking about. And things did not turn out very well for a very long time. Guadalcanal was very touch and go,
Yeah.
specifically at sea. In the air, different story. I have to say that right now. The Marine Corps flying off of Henderson Field and Fighter One, those guys were freaking amazing. They did so much with so little. And then you got, the U.S. Navy that was there and the Army Air Forces too. And they did so much with so little, cannibalizing aircraft. So the air aspect of Guadalcanal is ridiculous. But the sea aspect, God almighty, Jesus, we learned, the hard way in the ground
Sure did.
too, less so in the ground than in the sea. And then, I mean, a lot of those lessons that we learned at Guadalcanal translated, but they didn't translate as soon as you may have expected them to.
Hmm.
I mean, like a lot of the naval battles in the Solomons in 43, which is a book unto itself, Kula Gulf and Cape St. George and everything.
Oh my God.
Kolombangara, yeah. I mean, those are some amazingly really cool instances that people haven't explored yet. And then, a lot of the things, especially in those early battles, that you would like, God, why didn't you learn this on Guadalcanal? I don't know.
Right.
You don't see them come to fruition until later in the campaign, and it's like, why the hell didn't that take, root? And there's a lot of things that we just screwed the pooch, and people think, again, this misconception that the U.S. was just, infallible, and it's like, good God, no. I'd say 60% of the time we were good, and 40% of the time we screwed things up, and then we cost a lot of lives to do that, and
Hmm.
it's very unfortunate. And that's just the Pacific. I'm not even talking Europe. Good God, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation for another day. But yeah, so
Yeah.
So,
we ain't perfect.
No.
I think for review, I'd say that the one thing I've always thought about 1942 is that there is a conception of the war that once the great arsenal of democracy came in, that
Which wasn't in 42, by the way.
then the war was over, and then you're like, oh, that. And actually, in 42, we started turning the tide before that happened,
Yep.
which is a big miscon. People think, oh, we won the war because we got our industry, and but those decisive year to promote John's book is the 42 is when things start turning around.
Yep.
And I think what Seth's trying to say is that regardless of how great you win a war, how great things are done, there's always lessons to be learned. And that these two
Yeah.
amazing professors of military studies still learn shit every single day.
Every day.
Truth.
And I will finish this podcast by about 5 or 6 questions were asked saying that somebody should write a book and that they'd probably be really good at it. So, Seth, you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, sure. I could do that. Yeah, I am writing a book. I'm about, I don't know, 65% of the way through it. It's about the battle, the naval battle of Guadalcanal, Friday the 13th, and all the events that lead up to it, through it, and then after it, including, of course, obviously, the battleships, because why not?
Because right, you're there.
Yeah, why would you not
Wouldn't
do
you?
that?
Yeah.
I'm doing it as I normally would do things, and as I've done history my whole career, and as I'm telling the story through the eyes of the guys that were there. Um, I'm not giving a lot of analysis. I will do that at the end of the book, but it's this is what happened. This is a minute by minute, hour by hour. This is what happened, and this is eh, this is how things went down, and this is how Joe Blow saw it. So. Um, it's a process, as John well knows, and it's like I said, you make sure you write the book before you have the contract. I had the contract, and then I wrote the book, so it's like I'm under the gun. So it's 2 feet on the pedal to get it done, but we'll get it done.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. I shipped a galley of the book off to Oxford last week. So that means that the uncorrected, it's all laid out at this point. All the pictures are, all the diagrams, all that stuff. And I'm in the middle of the process of taking the proof editing portion and oh yeah, messed up a comma here, blah 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 blah. So yeah, I'm down in the weeds now, but we'll have I've got to have completed PDFs for this thing sometime in February of 26. The book will be released on June 1st, 2026. And we're definitely going to make those dates. I would say, to our earlier questioner who was like, yeah, I'm saving a space on my shelf. You should reinforce that shelf. This book is
That's our
just, it's stupid. It's 1,250 pages long.
baby.
It's stupid. Um,
It's awesome. I think
it's a
that's
That's
big, it's a big topic, and so there's a lot to talk about there. But it reads
that's
well. I will say,
it
anybody who,
does.
yeah, if you've seen it, right?
I
Anybody who
have.
enjoyed Shattered Sword, you will enjoy this book. There's just a lot of it to enjoy, I'm afraid.
I've
So,
read the first 5 or 6 chapters of it, and it is outstanding. It is outstanding. It's
thank
ironic
you.
that your publication date is June 1st, 2026, because that is my due date.
Oh, really? Yeah, baby.
Indeed.
Yeah.
June 1st, 2026 is the due date for The Killing Sea, is what the working title is called, the
Ooh, I like it.
climactic naval
And
battle.
obviously, let me know if you need help with that. So,
Oh, that's coming, but I know you've been in the
yeah,
weeds of doing your own thing, so I'm not going to bother people that are
yeah.
already working. But yeah, we're getting
I've
there.
been lucky enough to read a couple of chapters, and the best way I can describe it is you are at the battle. You are locked in and
Cool.
you are on the bridge.
Cool.
A lot of blood, a lot of gore, but it's.
It is what
I
it
mean,
is.
it's not you know gratuitous, but it's there. I want to make sure people understand that life and death in the United States Navy off the shores of Guadalcanal was not a cakewalk.
Right. It's not
Yeah.
pretty.
No, not at all. Not at
I
all.
just want to say thanks again to our audience and to the Nerderati.
Oh my
And
God, the
this,
notoriety.
yeah, the last two episodes, these Q&As really do kind of devolve into us sitting at the bar and yakking. And we really appreciate the fact that you like hanging out with us and listening to us ramble. We hope that we deliver good value. I know that Seth and I both really enjoy doing these episodes. It's a labor of love, but I never wake up on a Tuesday morning like, oh God, I have to do some recording with Seth today. It's always a blast. and we intend to keep doing this as long as we are having fun, and I'm still having a hell of a lot of fun. So thank you for being here with us. Happy holidays. Sean, thank you so much for doing all of the hard work that you do to go through all of these
And
questions.
Christy, too.
And Christy to get you up and running on your computer. God bless her. So happy holidays to you, and thank you for being the third man here and just triaging all these questions. That's an amazing load of work. Really appreciate it.
No, I mean, little insights, all the listeners. I text these guys all week, like I can't wait for this. Like
Me
it's
neither.
this morning. We do it on Friday afternoons, and I wake up first thing and I say, "It's Christmas morning, boys. Let's go."
Let's go. Yep.
So
Yep.
it's a testament to the listeners. You guys are
Hey,
great.
you guys are
I
friggin' awesome.
love
Yeah.
like your questions are so like I was like, ooh, I can't wait to like stump these guys or get these guys in the corner. So you guys do
Yep.
a great job, and I appreciate again the stories and all you all do and being dedicated to this podcast. It's like just being a part of this. It's an honor and a privilege. Seth, John, thanks for including me in and just letting me be a little part of it. Love you guys, and I love all the listeners. You guys are great.
Yeah, well, thank you
Merry Christmas,
also for
everybody.
being here, and thank you to the Nerderati, as John
Thank
said.
you
You
to the
guys are
Nerderati.
freaking awesome, and we do need to make sure it's like to benefit a museum or something, but just
Yeah.
says the Nerderati,
The
or
Nerderati.
I don't know. We got to figure
I don't
something
know.
out because I
Yeah.
would wear that.
Yeah. All
Anyway,
right.
all right, we're good.
We're good. Thank you
Sean,
so
you
much.
good?
I'm good. Let's rock and roll. Merry Christmas.
All right, it's
All right.
time to eat, brother.
Happy
All
New
right.
Year.
There you go. With that, we want to thank you very much for listening and/or watching this episode of the Unauthorized History of the Pacific War. Give us a rating and review. We do thank you. Once again, my name is Seth Perrin. Sean, thank you as always for being here for these Q&As. John, let's go home.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you again next week.